Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Operator Certification Outreach event for water system owners, operators, and managers. There's always something with these things. Already having technical difficulties, huh?
Yeah, we can see your screen, Evan.
You can? Okay. I'm just having a hard time seeing the other screen. All right. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please remember the PDHs are going to be available at the end. Please keep track of all your documents. The agenda and PowerPoint handouts, if we have any, are going to be in the handout section, but right now only the agendas. Webcams are disabled and all attendees will be muted moving on. Also for questions, please use the bar on the right-hand side for the questions box. We'll be getting to those as we go through each presentation. The webinar is being recorded for future viewing on our YouTube site. And if you have any questions, please email rg10@azdeq.gov, or you can call us at this number as well for any questions. Okay, moving on. First off, I believe I might be a new voice, a new person for many of you who have been operators for a long time. My name is Ebony Roan. I'm the new Operator Certification Program Coordinator with the Drinking Water Unit. I'm taking over duties for Noah Adams, many of you are familiar with, so please feel free to reach me by phone or email for any certification-related topics. Let's see, I've got just a little bit about me. I've got a degree, a bachelor's degree from Humboldt State University, Environmental Science, minor in watershed management, so I'm very passionate about water resources and management. I'm excited to put my knowledge and skills to get use at ADEQ, being useful to the drinking water unit and to the operators and system owners. Okay. And moving on to our very first presentation, we're going to have several throughout the evening for the next 4 hours. So please sit back, get your pen and paper ready for any questions. And we're going to start with early exam reviews that our OpCert program offers for all qualified applicants and operators. Okay, for our agenda for the early exam review, we're going to be going over the examination in Arizona from 2019 to 2022, just to show you guys this little interesting trend that we've picked up on. We're going to go into the details of what an early exam is, how you would qualify for one, breaking it down based on the rule Title 18, Chapter 5, Article 1, specifically sections 101, which are the definitions, and 112 for the qualifications we expect each operator to be per grade, how to apply, what the review process looks like on our end, and then what you would do on your end for whether you're approved or denied. Let's go ahead and start with our examinations over the last couple of years. Chart looks a little rough, a lot of detail, please bear with me. So what you want to keep in mind is the information for the overall pass percentage. 2019 was our highest. Overall passing across all 4 classifications, again, across all grades. Overall, 58%, which is pretty good. We dipped a little bit in 2020 with 55, and of course, COVID hit. Unfortunately, a lot of people were affected, and our passing rate as of 2021 was 37%, close to 38. Jump up to this year, we are now at 43%. So we're going up across the board. A little bit of information to take away from our past information from examinations It seems like we have quite a bit of water distribution certifications being earned here. Our highest amount of certifications being earned. So we're going to start trying to gear more information for water distribution. And then also here for our lowest, I guess I should say exams passed, water treatment grade 4. All of these metrics here can help us predict or help us plan for future outreach events and information that we'll need to provide based on the trending of examinations taken over the last year. So more on this information in the future for next events, but this is where we are. So getting into early exams, how this plays into this, we want to get this number back up, this overall passing rate back up, and early exams do play a role. Okay, so computer's a little slow here. There we go. What exactly is it? Doesn't mean to apply for an early exam. Pretty much, the application provides a qualified applicant an opportunity to skip a grade they do not currently hold with ADEQ. And you can sit for the requested exams if you qualify. All applications are reviewed based on the conditions written in AAC Title 18, Chapter 5, Article 1. Moving forward, if you hear me say R18-5 or you see this list in the presentation, just know I'm referring to this exact same rule. There is a non-refundable $150 review fee, and we have a approval rating of about 67% of applicants. And this is a lot of money to be spending for so few being approved. So we just want to make sure we go over this process. So in the future, if you are considering skipping a grade or going up to the next grade a bit early, we want to make sure that you know your options, you know the process, and you're not going in blind. We have all this information listed on our homepage, the qualifications listed on our homepage. I just pulled directly from the rule, but you can also read it from the rule on the bottom, the rule itself on the bottom of the homepage. A little bit of a typo on the homepage itself. Grade 3, the second bulletin should say 18 months of qualifying experience, not 1 year. So if I see anyone applying for a grade 3 and they fall under that, I always give them a call. Let them know, hey, I see you saw the 1 year, but just so you know, the rule itself says 18 months. Okay. Now, moving on to the two sections that are the biggest, I guess the most important factors for an early exam review, which would be Section 101 and Section 112. From Section 101, what we're gathering are definitions that we're looking for when we say qualified. Starting with qualifying experience. Excuse me. For qualifying experience, per the 101 definition means experience, skills, or knowledge obtained through employment that is applicable to the technical or operational control of part or of all of the system. That means you're working in, take that off. It means you're working in the plant around it. You are in the lab. You are outside doing the testing. You're doing the cleaning. You're in the plant itself. So this can be practical, like being the operator or the chemist in another state or jurisdiction. We'll get back to that word jurisdiction in a minute. This also counts as an intern, or in some places offer operator and training opportunities for people who are just starting. Relevant laboratory experience as an undergrad also does count as qualifying experience. Just to note, as professional engineers out there, design and review does not always qualify as experience under our definition. You can design a tank, but if you never operated or you've never measured anything coming out of it, it doesn't exactly count as technical or operational control of part or all of that facility. Also, please, when you are submitting your resumes, to show qualifying experience. Make sure the information conveys the length of time or service that you've had with a plant or a system. Time will play a very big role, whether you're talking 6 months to a year or more. Moving on to our next definition that we're going to be needing is qualifying discipline. Laser pointer off. Qualifying discipline means engineering, biology, chemistry, or closely related technical or scientific discipline. This is what your degree or your post-secondary education needs to convey for us. When you provide your transcripts, they can be unofficial, or you can also provide a diploma or picture of whatever your degree is in the STEM field. To expand on this definition, we also accept hydrology degrees, environmental science, microbiology, geography, physics. Just make sure it qualifies as a STEM degree. Believe I said all transcripts, for your transcripts, yes, your grades need to be a C or better. So if you don't have that, just please, I would hold off on applying for this or give me a call and see what other options you have. This qualifying discipline will mainly follow under two subsections you'll see in a minute, while the third option is providing us a high school diploma or a GED. There it goes, now it comes back. So we have like a chemistry, we've got some AutoCAD for engineers, or any system if you're familiar with the SCADA system, and then just general earth sciences. Like I said, STEM degrees. Okay. So how does the qualifying experience definition and qualifying discipline definition fit into requirements per R18-5-112D specifically? Well, it's going to depend on what grade exactly you are applying for. Subsection, or I should say R18-5, section 112D eliminates the subjective decision making. We're very objective when we are reviewing your applications. Education experience must correspond with one of the three options. I'm talking A, B, or C. A, B, or C in either grade 2 for grade 2, grade 3, or grade 4. I'm going to bring up some scenarios, but any person who's going for a grade 1, you don't need to apply for an early exam. Your minimum qualifications are just a high school diploma or equivalent, like a GED. And most applicants who will fall under B or C. Those who are falling under A are typically bringing experience from another jurisdiction or have held this certification or this grade in the past and it's no longer active. Okay. So let's go through some scenarios. Okay. So scenario 1, April is applying to sit for water treatment grade 2 early. Remember, we need that qualifying experience and we need the qualifying discipline in education. April has submitted an AA from Gateway Community College and environmental science and water resource technology. And she has been a water treatment grade 1 operator for 9 months. So she could not qualify under A because she has not been a grade 1 for at least a year. But she does have an AA. And she's provided the degree itself is considered a qualifying discipline. And she has been an operator for at least 6 months. Under these circumstances, April's early exam application would be approved. Now let's bring in another scenario with this. She was a grade 1 with ITCA. ITCA is the Intertribal Council of Arizona. They have their own water program and they take their test as well. If she's meeting our standards, such as under 2B subsection here, That would mean she would just fall a little bit below after the 6 months of grade 1 operator, the equivalent of a grade 1 operator in another jurisdiction. April would still be approved to sit early for her grade 2. Moving on to scenario number 2. If April is applying to sit for that water treatment grade 2 exam again. This time, she submitted a high school diploma, and she has been a certified operator grade 1 for a year and 6 months with the city of Mesa. But unfortunately, she let that certification expire. So under the statute here, R18-112, April would qualify under subsection 2A. She has her high school diploma, and she's been an operator for over a year. And it's equivalent because it's in another jurisdiction, but it just means that she had it at a different time. She at least held it for a year, and for that fact alone, she does meet standards. Her application would still be approved. Okay. Moving on to, it says scenario 2. This should say scenario 3. There you go. So David here has been a certified wastewater operator, grade 1 for 2 years, and he provides us a bachelor's degree in liberal arts. Absolutely nothing against liberal arts majors, by the way. But unfortunately, this degree does not fall under our definition of qualifying degree for the program's purposes, or qualifying discipline for the program's purpose. Unfortunately, David would be denied, but we do try to give people the opportunity to prove qualifications. So we would contact David to see if he can still qualify under subsection A or B, and he would either have to provide a high school diploma or GED, or provide us 2 years of post-secondary education in a qualifying discipline. Remember, his experience alone at 2 years puts him in section A or B if he has that qualifying experience. Good news for David, he's called, he says, hey, I have a high school diploma. Since he has over a year of experience, oh, he does not have it, excuse me. This is actually a good point for me, I've messed this up. Looking at this, David would not qualify. He does not have the 1 year as a grade 2. He only has 2 years as a grade 1. And though he does have the qualifying discipline, as in the high school diploma, GED, unfortunately, we still could not approve David's application. Okay, and last scenario. You must get it at this point. So let's see if you can do this one along with me. If David is applying to sit for a wastewater collection grade 3 just by skipping the grade 2 completely, which he can do. So same scenario, he has a grade 1 for 6 months right now. He is provided this time a bachelor's degree in civil engineering. Based off of the experience as a wastewater, he's 6 months only, but he has provided a bachelor's in a qualifying discipline. Unfortunately, once again, David would only fall under 3 subsection C, but his experience is missing 6 months, even though he does have the qualifying discipline. Unfortunately, once again, David would be denied the opportunity to sit early for the grade 3. We would just recommend, hey, we recommend you sit for the grade 2. Apply again if you would like in the future, but we will talk about those options based on the certifications that he currently holds. Okay, so now that you understand how the process is, how we're reviewing your resume and transcripts for qualifying experience and education when you submit them, you're thinking in your head, okay, I know I would meet this criteria, so I'm ready to apply. You have 2 options on how to apply. Well, one, it is mainly through the portal, all through the portal, but there are 2 choices. One, you could be an existing operator, and you would have this little handy option on your dashboard. So you can apply through your existing portal account. Or two, you could be a brand new person, never been certified with Arizona, and you can just go straight to the operator certification portal, and your button to click would be at the bottom left. Apply to test early. Please keep in mind a portal is only compatible with so many browsers, which would be Chrome, Firefox, and Safari for Mac. So to avoid any errors as you're going through your application, please ensure that you're using compatible browsers for the portal. And also, this is the operator certification portal, but moving forward, I will be referring to it as just the portal. Okay, so when you enter the portal, you'll be encountered by this screen first. Once again, checking if you have the qualifying education and qualifying work experience, those two words there. If you hover over this question box, it will once again remind you exactly what we're looking for in terms of qualifying education. Associates, bachelor's, higher degree. We put bachelor's on same level as masters and PhDs. Oh my gosh, PDHs, PhDs. I always get this too in my brain. Work experience, just your resume. And make sure your resume conveys that information. You want the time of service or employment with a system or plant. And then if you have any other additional information, such as maybe you were an operator in another jurisdiction and you didn't seek reciprocity, you didn't transfer it over to us. That kind of information we're going to be looking for your work experience. Now, if you click yes, you'll be able to continue. If you click no, you'll be met with a screen that says you're not eligible and to give us a call. Our OPSCERT number 602-771-0100. Or you can also email us. I'll be happy to talk to you, let you know what you need to do to meet qualifications per grade, depending on the grade that you're applying for. I can't review your resume or your transcripts, but we can definitely talk about your options. I also want to point out, if at any point you will see this trend here, any point you get confused, this need help button is available throughout the entire presentation. At any point you need help, it's going to give you the same information as you see here. Just go ahead and give us a call. Okay, so you've pressed yes. You are sure that you qualify and you're ready to move forward with the process of the application. You'll need to get your personal information. Whatever information you put down will be used for your operator portal if you are approved and you pass your exam. The supporting documents, we only need two, your resume and your your transcripts or a picture of your diploma, or if you have backup material for your resume. Payment is $150. As I said before, it's non-refundable and it's just a review fee. We take these payments, Visa, MasterCard, Discovery, American Express, or electronic check, excuse me. The 20 minutes warning is on a single screen. You don't have 20 minutes to complete the entire application. It's just you only have 20 minutes per screen moving forward. Okay. These are just some timeout notifications you'll get if you wait too long. The application itself does not save, so make sure you have all of the information that you're going to need from that prior screen ready when you are completing this application. Okay, contact information. Like I said, this information here will be used to create your operator certification profile after you take the exam and come back to certify it. So whatever you put here, from your address to your social security to your email, will be used. Make sure it's a valid email that you have access to. So how do you pick for your exams? Here, you'll see the options, grade 2, 3, and 4 across all 4 disciplines. You can pick as many exams as you would like. It doesn't mean that you'll be approved for all 4. So you can pick up to 4, or you can just pick one. We've had a situation recently where a gentleman applied 2 different applications, paid $150 each time for 2 different exams. You don't have to do that. we'll find you one and just condense them. But in truth, you should just choose all your exams here at once. Okay, on to the supporting documents, which I'm going to call the meat and potatoes. If you're not into meat, replace that. The meat and potatoes for everything that we're going to be viewing. When we're looking for your qualifying experience and qualifying discipline with your education, you only need to upload the resume and your transcripts. We've had some people submit letters of recommendation from work, cover letters. These are useful if they count towards your experience and your degree, excuse me, and your qualifying discipline degree. The letter of recommendation itself is not used as part of this process, so you can go ahead and save that. Your qualifications for an early exam are up to you and you alone. If the letter is something that explains or expands on your current position and how it counts towards your qualifying experience, yeah, that would help. But like I said, once again, your qualifications are on you and you alone. So we only need that resume and we only need that transcript. If you only provide a resume, this could delay the time a bit on your review process, and because we'll have to reach out to you, we'll have to wait for you to get these documents. So like I said, make sure you have both of these things ready at the very minimum, and your resume and transcripts convey qualifying experience and qualifying discipline. And I know I'm saying it a lot, but this is very important. Okay, you're getting to the next point. You're almost done here. You have a summary. This is the last chance to check over everything, make sure you've updated your information correctly. This is the email that we can contact you, the phone number we can contact you at in case we need any further information or we need to follow up with you for some clarification on a document that you presented to us. Please make sure all of this is correct. So here you're getting into the rules and statutes. You're agreeing to this. You're saying that you're not suspended or on probation with Arizona or another state. You're not lying or falsifying any information. And also a promise to you that you won't be judged outside of the requirements of the Arizona Rule R18-5, Article 1. Like I said, this is an objective process. So this is your agreement that this is the agreement that you're checking that everything is fine, everything is true to the best of your knowledge, and you are pretty much officially submitting your application at this point. Please type your name at the bottom as well to complete this section. Next is payment. Once again, $150, non-refundable. This is done outside of the portal. On the Arizona State Payment Portal checkout utility. Many of you have probably used this for other services ADEQ offers. Just a note on this page, once you get to the payment section, please make sure that you are entering an email that you have access to. That is exactly where your receipt goes. We, on my end, we do not get a copy of your receipt. We only get a copy of your summary and a notification that there is an early exam application in the queue. So if you need a copy of your receipt, you can email me, but the best way to keep track of receipts on your end is to provide an email that you know you have access to, and then remember which one that is. Okay. All right, so now you're done on your end. Now it's on us. What happens next? Like I said, you receive the summary, confirmation email, and now you are waiting in our queue for review. Within that email for the summary will be details on which exams you've applied to and the documents that you uploaded. I would always check this at the end just to make sure everything's good. If you forgot to upload anything or some information in the summary is incorrect, please give us a call or email the OPCERT program. That way we can update our records. You won't be able to upload further documentation to your application on the portal after you submit it. So we just update it on our end. We work with what you give us. So please make sure, like I said earlier, it conveys all the information that we'll be looking for, that meat and potatoes I was mentioning earlier. Or this could delay the process pretty much by a week or two if we have to chase you down for information. After a couple of weeks of no response, we pretty much deny the application and there's no further correspondence. So just an example here, I have a summary of an applicant who was applying for Water Distribution 3. They submitted their college transcripts, but they are actually missing their resume. So like I said, we have to reach out to them. Hey, can you provide us your resume? So yeah, like I said, that delays the process. If we have to follow up with you after we get the resume and transcripts, we will. This doesn't necessarily always delay the process. It can just be a quick question for clarification. Please do not register for an exam until you know that you are approved. The exams for Gateway and City of Phoenix are non-refundable. If this person applied or registered to take the Water Distribution Grade 3 and they are a Grade 1, and then we had to deny their application because they did not meet standards through qualifying experience or qualifying education, they would not be able to get a refund. They would take the test and they would still have to take the Grade 2. So it's like, on your, just don't, it's a mess. Please do not apply for or register for an exam until you are officially sure you've been approved. So we will send out an email or a denial email at this point after the review is done. At that point, if you are approved, you can apply for an exam. Okay. Okay, now scenario 1, you've been approved. Okay, you've for your resume and transcripts, you've shown that you've met the minimum requirements for R18-5-112. At this point, now you can schedule an examination date and start studying. But please save this email. As I mentioned earlier, that $150 is only a review fee. You will still need to pay for the exam, and you will still need to pay to register your certification, which for the program is $65. A few pieces of information on this email are very important. You can only take the approved exams. And for this person, the wastewater collection grade 2 was approved, and you would only be able to register those exams the earliest on the effective date, in this case, August 8th, 2022. If this person took the collection 2 exam and they try to register it before it's time, say like the 7th, maybe we talked the day before, okay, we got everything, looks like you're approved, I just need to finalize it on my end. They pass the exam, the earliest they would be able to register would be August 8th. Now, if they try to take the exam grade 3 and come back and register it, the system will not allow it. If you see here, in the third line, once you've passed your exam, click the following link to get certified, get your certificate. It is only approved for the approved exams. This person will only be able to register a collection grade 2. And this link does not expire. So if it takes you a couple of months to study for the exam and come back, or if you're approved for multiple and you want to get them all done before you come back and certify, you can do that. So you've been denied. Now what? It just means that we could not find qualifying experience in your resume, or we did not find that your degree fit the definition of a qualifying discipline for the grade that you were applying for. So yes, we will send you a denial email. The applicant will receive an email stating that they've been denied and the contact information of the reviewers in case you want to review the reasons why we could not approve you. Our application reviews are extensive and very thorough. Thus, when we deny an applicant, it's not without probable cause. In our internal database, the reviewer is able to type out the reason for denial, for general record keeping and for the applicant in case they call and they want to follow up with questions. But we have had some feedback on our denial emails, and the program is taking measures to change this. If you've been some of the unfortunate few to receive the email, you can see it does come off a bit blunt and personable, and it does not, unfortunately, right now contain the reason for denial that we list internally. The portal itself, it's due for some updates. Future updates are being planned currently, and one of them is to have the early exam denial email reason included. Like we can put it in our internal database, and you'll be able to see it in the email if you are to receive one of these denied correspondence. Until that comes into effect, though, I will be following up with each applicant who is denied with an email detailing where requirements were not met per R18-5-112D. Or if there is a different reason, such as maybe we discovered you were falsifying some information. That's a totally different subject. But yeah, we will always give you the reason for denial, and we'll be upfront on your options. So either way, there will be a reason listed. I just wanted to put a U-turn here because I always feel like deny is a very hard word. It's not a complete stop to your career. You do have options. You just need to step back and evaluate them all. And we'll always be available to discuss what you can do to meet requirements for future applications or to inform you of alternative paths based on the certifications you currently have. Just communicate with us. We want to help you afterwards. We want to make sure you reach your goals. Okay. And just to wrap it up, well, that is the end of that. But just to get to the conclusion, summarize everything, examination passing rates are slowly climbing back up. If you notice that trend, COVID did take a huge hit on the passing percentage rate, but we're climbing back up and also using the information we have to try to gear more future outreach events, specifically to different classifications and based on grades, just to help tick those numbers up. Then also, just back to the early exam application itself, please ensure you qualify for our under R18-5-112. We do have the rule for you to review at the bottom of our homepage, the operator certification homepage. You can see it there yourself. You can go straight to that section. You can line your resume and your degree up, see where you fit for the grade that you're going for. If you don't, I would wait, or you can give us a call as well. That fee is non-refundable and it does not guarantee approval. Please know that after you pay for the review, you still have to pay for the exam, which varies between Gateway and City of Phoenix, and the registration fee, which is $65 for ADEQ. As a reminder, PE design review does not guarantee approval. We need to see that qualifying experience, like I said, in part or all of the facility. Review fees, I just covered that bullet point, but review fees does not cover the exam or certification. If you have any questions, you can give us a call at 602-771-0100. Also, a reminder, we understand that early exam processes do gain opportunities for career promotions and pay increases. But the purpose of this process is to ensure that qualified operators are there at the right grade for the facility to do the job the right way. The ultimate goal, the mission, is to protect human health and the environment. It does seem like the early exam is a quick pass up, but we're not looking at, your future career goals itself. We're looking at how well you can perform the duties based on the subsection, the section 112, on where each operator should be per grade. So it's not a bias against you. It's not that we don't want you to succeed by skipping that grade 3 or grade 2. We simply want to make sure you're qualified for the position that you're going into. and that you can handle the 2017 ABC exam for that grade. Okay. It is now 8:40. Here. Thank you. And at this point, we'll be taking any questions before we follow up with Fire Flow and Flushing by Nam Ho.
Hey, Ebony, it's Jason. There was just one question in the chat here. How do you apply to be an operator grade 1?
Okay.
That's the question.
Definitely. Good question. Thank you. To be a grade 1 operator, strictly what we need from you is to make sure you have your high school diploma, GED or equivalent, and then you can go straight to Gateway Community College or City of Phoenix, depending on if they have any availability for testing dates. Whether they do or not, I do suggest starting to study early, but that is all you need to become a grade 1. If you are going to become a grade 1, please do not apply for an early exam. Early exam is strictly to review if you're ready to go to the next grade up, because there are more responsibilities and more qualifications needed than a grade 1. Also, in terms of study materials, we have plenty on our website, our operator certification homepage. Highly suggest starting with the How to Become Certified document, which has a bunch of links for study material, both free and low cost. And then also direct link to ABC's site for need to know criteria per classification and per grade. So if you need to become a water distribution grade 2, there is a link there for exactly what they'll be testing you on the ABC exam. You can just view that sheet, make sure you've got a general good idea of everything they're going to cover, and you should be good to move forward. Any further questions?
Yeah, we have another one just came up in the chat. Ebony says, hello, Ebony, great presentation. And I agree. Great job. I'm actually a newbie and need to submit for water distribution and water treatment and looking to secure my level 1s. Is the process you presented the same for level 1s?
Okay, so level 1 is just having your high school diploma, and you can go straight to examination with Gateway or City of Phoenix. If you're interested after you get your grade 1, oh, well, let me finish the process. You would get your examination, you would pass the exam for the grade 1. You would go to our operator certification portal I mentioned earlier. Let's go back to this little option here. This slide here will tell you everything. So you would get your your results. You need to pass with a 70 or higher for the exam. And then for you, you would come back to the operator certification portal. And if you can see my red mouse here, you would want to click on this button here. I've passed my test, and you're getting a new certificate. Once again, all the information you need to enter will help to create your portal account. And then you got to enter, you'll receive an individual mastery report from Gateway or from City of Phoenix. You will need to enter that information in to proceed into the portal further. And then once that's been verified, you'll be able to pay the $65 and become a certified grade 1 operator. At that point, then if you want to skip grade 2 and you qualify, this early exam process will apply to you. Only if you want to skip grade 2 or get to grade 2 earlier if you have the qualifying experience and education that we're requesting for grade 2. I'm going to go back because that's a very good point actually, because I do know we've had an application for a grade 1 who did apply for an early exam. I want to bring your attention to that point itself. If you are a grade 1, you do not need to apply for a grade, the next grade over, if you've held your certificate for at least a year. Excuse me, for at least a year. If you hold your grade, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, 4 is the highest, so this one counts. So we're talking 1, 2, or 3. You would fall under A or 3A. So you would have your high school diploma, which you would need to take the exam, and then you held a year of qualifying experience as a grade 1 operator. If this is just how you're doing it naturally, you do not need to apply for an early exam. Same as if you were going to become a grade 3 operator. You need your high school diploma to take the exam, but then you also need to have been a grade 2 operator for a year and then pass that exam. You would just go straight to your portal and you would certify results and you'd be able to move up to the next grade. And then the same for 3 to 4. Earlier I mentioned many early exam applicants fall under B or C for either grade 3 or 4. That's because they don't qualify under A. They haven't held a grade 1 or grade 2 or grade 3 before. So they need further review to make sure that they're on par with operators who are just going through it naturally over time. Okay, any further questions? I'm seeing where on the website can we see a copy of this presentation. Our plan is to record this entire for our presentation and upload it to the ADEQ YouTube website, excuse me, the YouTube channel. So that will be available in the future. I should say moving forward for our website, we'll be doing a little bit of updating on the requirements for, or I guess the information provided for early exams. Like I said, there's a typo under grade 3 that says a year versus the rule that says 18 months. So all of that needs to be updated. And then we'll have more future plans for early exams. Like I said, I think I told you earlier, our early exam approval rating is 67%, and it can be higher. And of that 67%, not everyone even attempts the exam or passes. That is unfortunately metrics I do not have right now. But from what I've been reviewing, it's very low. I don't want to go off of, I want to get the exact numbers for you guys in the future, but we're trying to mitigate this with clear information, a streamlined process for you to review yourself before submitting any money or documents to us. And then to make sure you're ready for that next grade up. You are literally skipping an entire year of experience or a couple of 6 months of experience to a year requirements to make sure that you are qualified to run the system that needs you for a community that needs you. So we're very, very keen on making sure everyone knows what the qualifications are and they're not wasting any time or money before they apply. So like I said, this is a future update for the website itself. Clear information on early exams, a way to evaluate yourself before you apply, and then I guess more access to the resource itself, which is the rule. It's at the bottom of the website, but not everyone knows it's there. Any further questions?
Hi, Ebony. Yeah, it's Jason. So just a couple more in the chat. Manar got his grade 2 distribution and looks like he just renewed it. So that tells me he's had that grade 2 distribution certification for more than 1 year. So if that's the case, he can just go ahead and schedule his grade 3. As long as you held your previous level cert for at least 1 year, you can go ahead and schedule your next level examination. You don't have to get early exam approval for that.
Definitely. Thank you, Jason. Yes, you would fall under 3A, which once again, this would not require an early exam review, you would just go straight into applying for your grade 3 exam. And once you pass, you can return back to your portal to certify your results.
Okay. Next question was, I had my grade 3 in water and wastewater for 20 plus years, but my cert expired last year due to COVID sickness for 6 months. Do I need to retake the exams again to get my cert back? The answer is yes. If your certifications expired, you have 90 days to renew them, provided your PDHs were earned within the valid dates of your certification. So you have 90 days after expiration to actually submit those PDHs to get renewal. Once that 90 days is over, you now become inactive. And the only way to regain your certifications is to test. And you could test again at the level you held, at a lower level, or if you held those certs for at least a year, you can test at the next higher level. So you have options there, but testing is certainly required. And for Ken, the exams are, it's funny, they're in person, online. So they are all electronic, they're computer-based tests, but they are only in person at either Gateway College or City of Phoenix.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Any further questions before we move on to a smaller presentation for the next 10 minutes? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Those are really good questions. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Ebony, there's one more question.
Go ahead.
William is asking, where can we find practice tests that actually related to the test we take?
Well, the only way to get a practice exam right now is to go to the ATQ office in Phoenix. You would need to email or you can call the OpCert program and we would schedule you, you pick a date or time and the exact classification and grade of exam you want to take a practice exam for. You would go to the office in Phoenix and you would sit that for that exam. You will get instant answers to all your questions there. That way you know what to review, but unfortunately you can't take the exam, the practice test itself home. Also there are a few links within the How to Become Certified document that does offer practice exams. They're not Arizona based, but they are a good indicator on what to expect the flow of the ABC exam. Likewise, if you are an organization or a group, you can email the operator certification program, or you can give us a call and we'll be more than happy to talk about your options to get a group practice exam going for your organization specifically.
And thank you, Dean. We do have Dean Moulis is one of our engineers here in our groundwater program. He has offered to also administer them in our Tucson Southern Regional office down there in the lower portions of the state. That can be arranged. Just call the OpCert phone number, 602-771-0100, and we can help you.
Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Trying to close this out. Save this. We have about 5 minutes until Nam's turn. So what I would like to, oh, go ahead.
We do have another question, Ebony.
Oh, go ahead, please.
It's from William, and he says, I recently failed the test. Is there a time period that I must wait before retesting for a certificate?
In all honesty, there is not currently. You can take the test again as soon as another date opens up. We highly recommend avoiding that, taking tests back to back or on the same day, hour after hour. All of these exams, when pass or fail, they're counted. They're metrics for our program. So when we have operators kind of blunt forcing their way day after day on an exam, it does count on us. So we do highly recommend, please study for your exam. Make sure you're prepared. The individual mastery report that you are given lets you know what areas you need to work on the most. There's a green, yellow, and red section. Look for the sections that are in yellow, and just focus on those completely. If you have any questions on, say, exactly specifically what you need, you can always reach out. We can get you to some good sources. If you need clarification on something, yeah, just reach out. We'll get you some help to help you be able to pass the exam on the next round. But in short, no, there is no limit to how many times you can take the exam or how soon after you fail. But each test will come out of pocket on you, so keep that in mind as well. Any other questions? Okay, we have 4 minutes until NAM. I don't want to leave you guys sitting with like nothing here. So I'm just going to do a quick mini presentation on reciprocity itself. This might interest some who are coming out of the state or are located in another jurisdiction and would like to become certified with Arizona. Oh, that's where that went. Okay. All right. And this would just be a one-slide information. Reciprocity, I always find it fun. I guess saying the word for some is a lot more fun than the process. In short, reciprocity is transferring your current operator certifications from one state or jurisdiction to another, to Arizona specifically, or to another state. If you're from Arizona going to another, you would still have to follow their reciprocity process. And our requirements are listed in R18-5-110. Whether you're applying from, say, the state of Delaware or from a Native American reservation that also has their own water program, we review reciprocity requests to ensure they meet our standards set by Title 18, Chapter 5, R18-5. Couple of things. We are making sure that your certification has been earned through examination. It could be in Arizona or in another jurisdiction, another state. We do not accept reciprocity request for reciprocity that was granted prior. So if you got reciprocity in, let's just say, New Mexico, and you're applying for reciprocity in Arizona, we will deny your application. It has to have been earned through examination. Also, it has to be in good standing, and you have to be currently active. If you're within 3 months of the end of your certification, we will require you to provide us some PDHs. This sounds familiar to a lot of current operators. We keep reciprocity requests on the same par as the requirements for R18-5-112 and pretty much treat them as if they are under Arizona rule already when they are applying for reciprocity. If you have further questions for reciprocity, you can always call the operator certification program at any point, and we'll be happy to help you. Just so you know, your certification does have to fit within our 4 classifications: water treatment, wastewater treatment, water distribution, wastewater collection. Example, backflow inspector would most likely be denied for reciprocity. They have to have their certification itself have to fall within one of our 4. And like I mentioned, if you have further questions, please call or email the OpCert program at any time. And with that, it is 9 o'clock. Our next presenter is Nam Ho, and we'll go ahead and transfer over.
Ebony? Hi,
Yes.
we're gonna just have a little change in the agenda quick. We're gonna have Rachette go next.
All right, perfect. I will be transferring to Rachette. Thank you, and if you have further questions, please reach out to the OpCert program.
Thanks, Ebony.
Thank you.
All right. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, I could see it.
All right, sounds good. Let's get started then. Good morning, everyone. Again, thanks for joining us today. My name is Rushet Garamaya. I'm a Technical Assistance and Capacity Development Coordinator with ADQ's Drinking Water Program. I'll be going over our Technical Assistance and Capacity Development programs to give you an idea of the resources and assistance that is available to public water systems in Arizona. So let's get started. Okay, so we'll get started with a quick introduction to our universe. So ADQ regulates about 1,526 water systems, changes here and there. From this, about half are community water systems, which means they mostly serve a residential area. So these are your cities, towns, and so on. And about 570 are transient non-community water systems, so restaurants, gas stations, and such, where people don't remain for a long period of time. And 208 out of the 1,526 are non-transient, non-community water systems. So these are your workplaces, schools, factories, and so on. Most of our systems are considered small or very small. So from the 1,526 water systems that we regulate, about 90% serve less than 3,300 people, and 75% serve less than 500 people. Okay, so the type of water systems or structures, about 12% of our water systems are federally owned, state-owned, or run by public schools. About 40% are political subdivisions, so cities, towns, improvement districts, and so on. And then 22% are regulated by the ACC or the Arizona Corporation Commission, and the rest 52% are not regulated by the ACC and are not political subdivisions. So these make up about half of our water systems. And the reason this is important is because a lot of funding opportunities depend on the legal structure of the water system, and I'll go over that a little bit later. Okay, so next, the type of drinking water contaminants that we deal with in Arizona. The map I have here is from my community webpage. A lot of people may not be familiar with my community. You can let us know in the chat. So the page basically was created in an effort to be more transparent with the public. It provides information about environmental issues in Arizona and actions that are being taken to address them. So it deals with air quality, water quality, it has hazardous waste sites, solid waste sites, leaking underground storage tanks, and so on. So it has everything. The map here just shows you drinking water systems with a health-based exceedance. And the most common contaminants that we deal with are arsenic and nitrate exceedances for drinking water. We also see lead and copper action level exceedances, fluoride exceedances, disinfection byproducts, and so on. Okay, so some of the common areas for non-compliance. The first one, of course, is exceeding a health-based standard or an MCL, and some of these are caused by water system failures. We also see some of our water systems failing to obtain the required approvals from our engineering unit when constructing a new water system or making adjustments to an existing water system. So yeah, anytime you make modifications to your existing water system, please let us know so we can tell you if you need approval from our engineering review unit or not. And related to that, we also see the use of unapproved materials, coatings, and so on. In the field, we do see some issues caused by lack of preventative maintenance, so leaky storage tanks and stuff like that, and other O&M issues. In terms of paperwork, a common compliance issue that we see is a lack of an operations and maintenance manual and a lack of an emergency operations plan. And we believe most of these are tied to a lack of adequate TMF capacity or technical manager and financial capacity, which brings me to our capacity development program. So our capacity development program's goal is to strengthen the TMF capacity of public water systems so they are able to maintain compliance, first of all, with all applicable state and federal regulations, and also possess long-term sustainability. So as you all know, technical capacity would be the physical and technical capabilities of your system. So source water adequacy, infrastructure sufficiency, and the technical knowledge of your staff. Managerial capacity would be the administrative and organizational structure of the system. So ownership, accountability, staffing, corporate structure, we kind of touched upon that a little bit, and communication. And I'm simplifying these, so if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat. And financial capacity would be the financial resources of the water system to maintain the system now and in the future. So revenue sufficiency, are you bringing in enough revenue, credit worthiness, and what kind of fiscal controls do you have? So your annual budgets and so on. So why is TMF capacity important? Like I mentioned before, it's so public water systems are able to meet current and future demand and also maintain compliance with all regulations, state and federal, long term. The other thing is EPA also requires states to develop a capacity development strategy and programs to help public water systems strengthen their TMF capacity. And we just revised our strategy in 2022. And what the strategy is basically is programs, methods, and tools that ADQ will implement so that new and existing water systems have adequate TMF capacity. So we just list out, what kind of tools, what kind of programs, projects we're taking on so we can help you guys maintain adequate capacity. One of our goals for fiscal year 2022 was to evaluate the overall health of our public water systems. So to do that, we developed a TMF assessment tool, and the data we gather is going to help us understand the capacity needs within the state. We have conducted the assessment of 1,427 systems so far, so we only have less than 100 systems left. So we're hoping to use that data to come up with projects that would be useful to public water systems. All right, so moving on to our technical assistance program. So ADQ can provide technical assistance to community water systems and nonprofit, non-transient water systems. Non-profit, non-transient, non-community water systems. That's mouthful. Serving less than 10,000 people. So the assistance is either provided by experienced ADQ staff or by one of our third-party contractors, and ADQ will pay for the contractors. And the way we pick systems is that every year we develop a master priority list. So it's a list of systems that we're going to consider for technical assistance, and we use different criteria. We are trying to change that so it's more focused on public health. And in addition to that, water systems can also reach out to us directly and request technical assistance. In terms of cost, technical assistance services are free for participants, but systems might have to pay for costs resulting from our implementation of our recommendations. For water systems that need funding, our technical assistance program can also help them identify potential funding opportunities. To explain more about the type of technical assistance we provide, we can assist with system evaluation with recommendations for improvements. So basically, usually it's one of our contractors that will come to your system, do a full-on evaluation to let you know where you have capacity gaps and provide you with recommendations to improve, and also some of the basic costs to do that. So you can use that to go to funders and so on. Another type of technical assistance we provide, we do treatment selection and design. So if you're exceeding for a particular contaminant, we can help you select the type of treatment that would be optimal for your system and also help you design it. For systems that have treatment, we can assist with treatment optimization or operations optimization as well. We assist with management and financial planning. So this would include budget preparations, rate analysis if you need that, board training, asset management plans, and so on. So that's under management and financial planning. We can also help you prepare permitting documentation. So assistance with putting together an approval to construct and approval of construction. We also assist systems with planning for consolidation or regionalization. Most of the time, the consolidation projects that we worked on are usually smaller systems that have that are dealing with some sort of contaminant or that have an MCL exceedance, and they don't have the capacity to maintain a water system. So, for example, it can be a school, so it's really not their main job. So they want to consolidate with the nearest town or city, so we can assist with those type of projects as well. And like I mentioned before, we can assist with identifying and seeking funding for needed improvements. So this is just a list of what I talked about. And then I wanted to give you just more concrete examples of some of the projects that we worked on last fiscal year. So consolidation project, for example, so we did the design and permitting for water line extension and cost shared with the town to help a smaller water system consolidate with the town. And the smaller water system had an arsenic exceedance and did not have the capacity to maintain a treatment system long term. So basically, we just helped them consolidate with the town. And the town and ADQ share the cost of the water line extension, and we assisted with the design and permitting. Another example, we provided funding to assist them to make physical improvements to their spring so they can avoid contamination from rain events and runoff from surrounding areas. This one, ADQ funded this project. So we also can help you with very simple projects like this one. We worked with the system on optimizing their arsenic treatment system. So like I talked about before, treatment optimization, and we helped them revise their O&M manual and blending plans as well as part of that project. So that falls under treatment and operations optimization. In terms of asset management plans, we helped a number of systems with developing asset management plans last year. So basically you can consider that like a budgeting sheet basically. So it has an inventory of all your assets, their conditions, which ones are considered critical, and kind of from there we develop a budgeting sheet for you, so you know what kind of operational and maintenance costs are coming up. So basically, you develop a repair replacement strategy for your system. Another system that we worked on, so we did investigation to acquire a new source for compliance. So basically, we're working with the system to help them acquire a new source because theirs is heavily contaminated. So we are helping them with acquiring land and drilling a new well. That's one of the main projects we were working on last year, and we've also assisted systems with compliance options reports to help them select appropriate treatment for their system. Just to give you more clarification on that, a compliance options report basically just gives you your options to deal with the compliance issue. So we'll give you 3 or 4 options, what the cost is and how it will help you deal with the issue, and then you pick whichever one works for you, and we'd help you with permitting and so on. So any questions so far, Ebony? Oh, sure.
Yes.
I think there was a problem with sound. I don't know if you can hear me better now.
Yes, and if we can slow down just a little bit.
Sure.
Sometimes the audio comes in and out. I guess it's messing with the presentation.
That sounds good. Let me know if we still have any audio issues.
All right, thank you.
All right. Okay, so moving on to funding. So many funding opportunities for water and wastewater systems are available, and these depend on a number of different factors, including the type of corporate structure that you are. So are you a political subdivision? Is the water system owned by a private investor? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a school? And so on. Your location can also be a factor. So is the water system located in a rural area versus an urban area? Is it located in a border region? The number of people served by the water system is also another factor used to determine Funding eligibility, so are you a very small system, medium system, large system? Another factor is if the water system has a special designation. So is it a colonia? Is the medium household income low? Is it a tribal system? So things like that. And on our website, we have a funding matrix. It's a matrix of the most common funding sources for water, wastewater, and stormwater facilities and renewable energy. It is organized alphabetically, and we note the purpose and the use for each type of funding, the eligibility requirement, and the contact information on the matrix. So this matrix, it's a bit small for you to see right now, but I can explain what it has. It's available on our website. I put the link below, but I'll also have it up at the end of the webinar if you need to write it down or take a picture. Let's see. Okay, and another way to seek assistance or funding is to attend a rural water infrastructure or RIC meeting. So the RIC is a partnership of all the technical assistance providers and funding agencies. And we meet quarterly, usually in Phoenix, but right now it's virtual. But we also go to different areas in Arizona if we know there's a need. Some of the partners, as you can see, are listed below. So Arizona Corporation Commission, ADQ, Arizona Department of Housing, Department of Water Resources, USDA with RCAC, Bureau of Reclamation, and so on. So how it works, usually we just ask systems to fill out a brief project form to give us an idea of the issue and what you're looking for. And then at the meeting, we'll give you a chance to present, what you need assistance with to all the technical assistance providers and funding agencies to determine who can assist you. So at the meeting, we'll pair you up, with whoever can assist you, funding agency, technical assistance provider. Actually, the next RIC meeting is scheduled for September 13th, 2022. It's at 1:30. It's going to be online. So if anyone is interested, you can reach out to me. I'll have my contact up later on. Another thing that our capacity development program works on is training for owners and managers of public water systems. Some things that we provide training on are asset management, rate setting, budget and water audits, and so on. We do have an upcoming training on September 7th, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a funding workshop for drinking water systems, and it's a webinar. Our presenters are some of the main funders. So with USDA, Bureau of Reclamation, ADQ, and basically we'll be going over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rochette. You're kind of coming in a little bit far out from the microphone.
Huh. Okay, let me try to fix my audio real quick. Give me 1 second. Is that a little bit better or still the same?
Let's go ahead and try. I'll let you know.
Hold on. Let me try something else. I'm gonna call in. Just give me 1 second.
No worries.
Hi, Ebony. Can you hear me better now?
That's way better. Yes. Please
Okay,
continue.
that sounds good.
Thank you.
I'm going to go over the funding portion again just to make sure people got the information, if that's okay. So I'm going to start here. It should be quick, so we should still have time for it. So some of the funding opportunities, I just wanted to go over it again. The funding depends on a number of different factors, so that includes the type of corporate structure that you are. So are you a political subdivision? Is the water system owned by a private investor? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a school? And so on. Your location can also be a factor. So is your water system located in a rural area versus an urban area? Is it located in a border region and stuff like that? The number of people you serve are also another factor used to determine funding eligibility. So is it a small water system, medium, large? Another factor is if the water system has a special designation. So is it a colonia? Is the medium household income low? Is it a tribal system and stuff like that? And I wanted to go over the funding matrix again because a lot of people do ask about this. So on our website, we have a funding matrix, and it's a matrix of the most common funding sources for water, wastewater, and stormwater facilities and renewable energy. It is organized alphabetically, and for each type of funding, we note the purpose and the use and the eligibility requirements, and we also have the contact information listed. This matrix, like I said, is available on our website. I put the link below, and again, like I said, I'll put it up at the end so you can take a picture or write it down. The RIC meeting, so another way to seek assistance from us or funding is to attend a Rural Water Infrastructure or RIC meeting. So the RIC is a partnership of all the technical assistance providers and funding agencies. And we meet quarterly. Right now we're meeting virtually, but usually we meet in Phoenix, and we also go to different areas in Arizona where we know there's a need. I went over this, but I'll go over it real quick again. How it works, basically, we ask you to fill out a brief project form that will give us an idea of the issue that you're having and what you're looking for. And then at the meeting, we'll give you a chance to present to the funders and to the technical assistance providers to determine who can assist you. You can ask questions. They can tell you, what kind of funding you're eligible for and so on. The next meeting we have is scheduled for September 13th, 2022. So if you're interested, you can put it in the chat and I can let you know some of the details. And then, like I mentioned, another thing that our capacity development program works on is training for owners and managers of public water systems. And we provide training on different things like asset management, rate studies, rate setting, budgets, water audits, emergency planning, and so on. And I was going over this one, I think, where my audio cut out. So we do have an upcoming training coming up on September 7, 2022. It's going to be from 8 to 12 p.m. It's online, so it's going to be a webinar. It's a funding workshop for drinking water systems, but it also covers wastewater as well. Our presenters are some of the main funders, so WIFA, USDA, Bureau of Reclamation, and ADQ. So yeah, you have all the topics up on the screen. Our ADQ presenter is going to go over other funding options that WIFA, USDA, and Bureau of Reclamation don't cover. This is a great workshop to attend, and you are able to ask questions directly to the funders. So if you're interested, you can register on our website, on our OPSERV page. And if you have questions, you can let me know. I'll put up my contacts. Some of the things that I talked about are technical assistance program. Those are the links to each program. So the link to technical assistance program, capacity development program, where you can find the funding matrix, and also the RIC website. The RIC website, or the Rural Water Infrastructure Committee website, is down right now. It's being renovated, but that is the link. So if you want to take a picture or write it down, I'll give you a minute.
Hey, Rashad. Hi, it's Jason. There's a question that's
Yes.
for right now. Are the RIC meetings open for the general public?
It's not open to the general public because we're having public water systems kind of present their case to the funders. So we usually just allow, 5 or 6 public water systems to present, so we have time for everyone. The meeting is only 2 hours usually, or 2 hours and a half. So yeah, if you want to attend though as a public water system, you can just let me know and I can add you to the meeting if you're interested. I think the question came from Steve, right? So Steve, feel free to email me. I'll put up my contact actually. Okay. I have my email up, so Steve, you can shoot me a quick email, then we can discuss.
Any further questions for Rashad? All right, we've got 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Rashad. That was a good presentation. We got 4 minutes. Just going to do a quick cover back to the operator certification portal. Thank you. And back to the operator certification portal, just to the emails. Very quick side note. Every operator who was active prior to November 2020 or active during that time has been migrated to the portal. You've been migrated if you had an email on file. If you did not, and you don't see your account up online right now, and you know your certifications are active, please give the program a call. That way we can migrate your information. And so here we go. The email itself is a key to your portal. It allows you to enter your portal account by sending you a verification code each time. The code will be different each time you log in. So having access to that email is important in all cases. You can check the operator certification database for the email we have on file. It'll be that exact one. And if it's not up to date, it's incorrect, just give us a call. That way we can change that out. You may be requested to verify your identity to avoid updating the wrong account's information. We highly, highly, highly suggest please use your personal email. You can change jobs and lose access to your job's email, and then the notifications we send for your portal, any information for an exam or reciprocity request, we send to this email. So we suggest using your personal email. Also, it's also good to limit the access entry into your email to just you and your admin contact if you wish. If you are relying on your employer to certify an exam or renew your certifications and they do not, responsibility doesn't fall on them. It falls on you. It is your portal account. If you, back to the verification codes, if you find you're taking a while to receive these verification codes or they don't show up at all, please check your spam box and also check with your email's IT department to make sure there's no firewall in place blocking the email, the verification code sent from the portal. It is a robotic email. It's and the title is do not reply. It doesn't say opposite program, so just look for do not reply verification codes. Make sure that you can get it in a timely manner because yes, the verification codes are timed. And if you have any further issues with your email or if you're getting a password screen, please call the operator certification program so that we can correct that issue. Okay. It is officially 9:30 and we have our next presenter, Nam Ho, who I will be transferring over. You all good to go, Nam?
Yes.
Okay, giving you.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
I can see, yes.
All right, great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nam Ho. I'm an engineer with the drinking water value stream at ADEQ. I've been with ADEQ for about 8 years. Some of you might recognize me. I used to be an inspector, so might have seen some of you out in the field. Today I'll be talking about fire flow and flushing. I apologize in advance. My voice isn't 100% today, so please bear with me. So here's the agenda for my presentation. It's going to take about 25 minutes. First, I'm going to talk about what an ATC AOC permit is and how it's related to fire flow and flushing. Then we'll move over to talk a little bit about hydraulic model and a fire hydrant test. We'll go over a fire flow test example. Then we'll move on to talk about dead ends, potential issues with dead ends, flushing, and then we'll have about 5 minutes for questions. Okay, so ATC stands for Approval to Construct. A public water system needs to submit an ATC application before constructing any water components. So the most common components are listed there: wells, storage tanks, booster pumps, water line, treatment plant, and chlorinators. So the ATC permit will allow the water system to construct these water components. ADQ usually does a review and will check to make sure that the equipment, that the proposed equipment is designed correctly. After that, after construction and testing, the water system now will have to apply for an AOC, that's approval of construction permit. The AOC permit is for the water system to gain permission to operate that equipment. Usually the ATC and AOC application are submitted by a professional engineer that works for the water system or is hired by the water system. Usually we work with the engineers since they have to provide their PE stamp for the design report and construction drawings, but we definitely like operator participation and input since they know the system the best, and some of these engineers are just contractors, or they'll gain information just on a site visit or whatnot. So the reason why we're talking about permits is we run into fire flow issues with water line permits. So we do need an ATC permit for a new water line, whether that's an extension or modification or for a new subdivision. So I have up there that if the water line project costs more than $50,000, an ATC application is required. The $50,000 limit is for an exemption. So if your project is a water line and it's under $50,000, you may be up for an exemption. We're not going to talk about that today, but if you have any questions on that, I can answer that at the end. So as part of the ATC application for a water line, the applicant will need to submit construction drawings stamped by a professional engineer, the review fee, and a design report stamped by a professional engineer. And some details in the design report, it covers information on the summary of the water line project, any calculations that needs to go along with it. And the big one is justification to meet the minimum pressure of 20 PSI for all flow conditions. So for example, if we have a new subdivision going in, the design report will, calculate how much water is going to be used in that subdivision and how the existing water system can meet that demand and pressure. Where we run into the most issues is water line replacement. Public water systems, sometimes do not understand that even though you're replacing the water line, it still needs to meet today's standards. So it'll have to go through the same process as the new water line, unless that water line replacement is with the same material and same pipe size, so that will be considered as operation and maintenance and will not require a permit. Now, if you are abandoning that line and moving the new line to a different side of the road, that will require a permit. And so the reason why I bring up water line replacement is many systems will replace their water lines They'll bring it up to today's standard. You know, before they may have 2-3 inch lines because their population was smaller. Now they have a bigger population, so they want to increase to 6 or 8 inch line. So we're going to need to know that if the system can handle that line. So usually bigger line means better pressure, but that it's only the case if the water system has the proper supply booster pumps to provide that pressure. So again, water line replacement will also need to go through the permitting process if it meets the criteria. Okay, so we're gonna jump over to hydraulic modeling and fire hydrant tests. So hydraulic modeling and fire hydrant tests are two of the options to provide justification to show that your water system or your new water line project can meet the minimum pressure of 20 psi for all flow conditions. So we like to see that the water system can demonstrate their worst case scenario, and that is usually fire flow plus max demand. So usually for a new subdivision, hydraulic modeling is is the best option. You'll see it in the design report. The engineering will develop a model to show the average flow, max flow, and fire flow, and they'll use existing pressure data to conduct their model. This will help them design what size line is needed for the subdivision, how to loop the system if necessary, and what the pressures are going to be. So for example, if you're in a kind of a hilly area, the hydraulic model can determine if you need to put in pressure reducing valves, a new booster station, etc. A fire hydrant test is commonly seen for water line replacement projects, especially if you're just replacing a small segment. Hydraulic modeling can be expensive, so you can use fire hydrant tests along with some calculations to show that you're able to meet the minimum pressure of 20 psi. Usually the hydraulic model will use fire hydrant flow test in order to calibrate their model. And we'll go into a little bit more of what that test consists of. All right, so here is a kind of made up subdivision that we have here. We're pulling this from one of our examples. So we have this new subdivision here on the left, a proposed subdivision basically, and then we have this existing water line along this road here. So C here is going to be our control fire hydrant, and then 1 here is going to be where we're testing the fire flow. So during a normal fire hydrant test, the operator, water system, or fire department will come out and run the fire hydrant. So what they'll do is they'll measure the static pressure at the control hydrant. So basically the pressure at which there's no flow, and they'll record that pressure. And then they'll run the fire hydrant downstream and measure the flow of this hydrant. And then they'll go back, or they'll have someone on the other end, they'll measure the residual pressure. And then from that, we can kind of calculate our worst case scenario. So let me show you here. So this is typically what it looks like for a fire flow analysis. If you look here at fire hydrant 1, that's what we're talking about, it has some information on the hydrant. And then here's the control hydrant. So first we'll look at the static, what we talked about. So remember, this is when they pull the pressure without any demand. So our kind of scenario here, we have a 73 psi pressure with no fire flow. Okay, so the next step is they're going to run that hydrant 1. That hydrant 1 is producing 1,200 gallons a minute. And then at the control hydrant, now we're getting a pressure of 66 psi. So of course the pressure is going to fall when you have a high flow. This made up system is designed really well, so the pressure didn't drop that much. But if your system is small or you don't have that much pressure, it could be a significant drop. The last step of the hydrant is a calculation. So what they do is they extrapolate the pressure down to 20 psi to see how many gallons per minute can be produced if the pressure was reduced to 20 psi. So in this case, you can pump up to 3,500 gallons a minute and still have a pressure over 20 psi. Now, sometimes these cases are realistic, and sometimes they're just a calculation that kind of gives you an estimate of how strong your system is. So why we have this case is sometimes the fire department can hook up to the hydrant and they have their own pump in their fire truck. So if they know that the system is well pressurized and they need extra water, they can pull more water from the system instead of just getting what naturally flows. So 99% of the time, this isn't going to happen. The fire department will just pull whatever is given. So, but for example, if they're fighting a fire and they require 1,500 gallons a minute, it'll be safe to pull from this system because we know that the system will not get under 20 psi unless it's unless you're pulling more than 3,500 gallons per minute. So the reason we care of what the pressure is anything under 20 psi can cause issues with the water system. You can start seeing the biomass that's accumulated on the pipes for years discharge. If someone has their hose in the pool and no backflow device, it can start suctioning water from upstream. So we don't want this scenario. So we want to make sure that all flows are the system is always pressurized at 20 psi or more for all flow conditions. So remember, that's the worst case scenario: fire flow and max daily flow. All right, any questions on that? I know it's kind of covered a lot right there.
No questions so far.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go over some examples of dead ends and how the fire hydrant applies to this. So I have 3 scenarios here. So this vertical line here is an existing water main. The first example of a dead end is someone tapping off of the main and just installing a fire hydrant at the end of it. So this is common for commercial areas where they have the service connection in the front, something like this, and then excuse me, and then they'll have they need a hydrant in the rear of the building, so they'll tap off the line here and create the hydrant and extend the water line to the hydrant. Another common one is what we kind of saw in our other example. It's also known as the tree branch. So you have an extension off of the water main here. You have a service connection here, and then you have a flushing valve at the end, or you'll have a hydrant at the end in this case. So these are 3 different scenarios. So keep in mind about this slide, we're going to go back to it after we review the potential issues. So what are the potential issues with dead ends? You can run into stagnant water. Your free chlorine residual can be used up over time and run into low free chlorine residual. You have potential for bacteria issues if, say, your chlorine is there's no more chlorine residual, and you have potential for disinfection byproduct formation if that dead end, that water is stagnant and with warm water, and if you're a surface water system, you haven't filtered out all the organics in the water. Okay, so those are the 4 potential issues with dead ends. So now we're going to go back to the examples here. So the first one here is the biggest one we don't like to see. That's why I have it in red. So this red line here with the hydrant at the end, it has no service connection on it. So the only time that water moves through this line is if you run the hydrant, flush the hydrant, or have an event where there's a fire and you need to pull the system. So eventually, when you build this line, all the water is going to fill up. You'll have your normal chlorine residual and everything, and eventually that chlorine residual is going to disappear because this line is stagnant. And the reason why we don't like this, we would rather have this looped, and that way we don't have stagnant water. So if we have stagnant water here and we have this hydrant down here and we have a fire event, it's going to pull a large amount of water in this line, and it's going to pull water back into this line. So all this water that has been sitting around for a year, 2 years, depending on if you guys are flushing or not, it's going to enter the distribution system again. And if that water is contaminated now, it's going to cause issues downstream for this subdivision here, this water main here. So we prefer not to see this. So it's not required. There's not a requirement for not designing it like this. We just ask you to show us the preventative, proactive measures on how not to have stagnant water. But and then it's going to be you know, up to the water system to properly design their system. So some scenarios, you know, you don't have land or you don't have the financials to loop the system. You know, we'll work with you to kind of you know, mitigate the issue as much as possible. Okay, so the second scenario here, it also goes to a dead end, but we have service connections on here. So the water is being used constantly. So we're getting a constant water flow from these homes, and they are using the water. So this one is going to be up to interpretation. It's going to be up to the water system to analyze to make sure that this setup is appropriate. So normally they can test at the end here to find out what the residual is. They can pull back t-tests here to make sure. They can pull flow tests here to make sure that the water, fresh water is always coming in here. So ideally it should work depending on how many homes you have here, what their usage are. And then you also still have the option to change the flow by flushing at this point. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so we're gonna go over flushing, and then again we're gonna go back to that picture. So flushing is a proactive measure to prevent potential water quality issue. ADQ does not have a requirement for flushing if the water system does not have any outstanding violations. So most of the time, water system will have a flushing program for preventative issues, so they don't get into violation. Once you occur a violation for an issue, and we've determined that it is because of the pressure or insignificant water flow, then flushing may be required in a compliance or consent order. So it's recommended for a water system to develop a flushing program. You know, there are many different flushing programs. You can have one for emergency. So if you have bacteria contamination in the water, there should be a flushing program. This will say, for example, run this hydrant for this many minutes or this many hours in order to, depending on where the positive hit was. You can also have a proactive flushing program, flushing once a week, once a month, once every 6 months, to kind of keep the water fresh in the system for those stagnant or areas, those high potential disinfection byproducts areas, especially with systems with dead ends. Okay. All right, so we're gonna jump back to this slide here. So this first scenario would be a perfect example where flushing would be highly recommended. Okay, you have the stagnant line here. You want to prevent any issues downstream. So I would say most of the time it should be okay. Once this line fills up, unless there's a large draw at the bottom here, the water from in here will not enter the distribution system. So there are many ways to kind of prevent that. You can install a backflow device here, but you know, a lot of times that will limit your fire flow, and a lot of systems and fire department are not willing to do that because you know, now you're not going to be able to meet your fire flow. So the next option is to flush this line. So it'll be up to the water system to determine how often you do that. So depending on the risk of the area, how many homes are in the area, how often fires are seen in the area, it's going to be up to the water system how often they flush it. So you know, if you get a fire event every 5 years, you know, it will be up to the system how often they flush it. We see programs every 6 months, annually, what have you. And the further testings will need to be done with the water quality to determine what is the best flushing occurrence. And then you would have to weigh out the risks of that water entering the system. So one way I recommend is to take your chlorine residual here after flushing and then profile it until it reduces to 0. Once it reduces to 0, it'll be a good time to flush it. Obviously, it does waste water, but if the system, we rather waste water and protect the public health than to have stagnant water enter the back into the distribution. Sorry. Similar scenario here, we have a flushing valve or a hydrant here. The system can be flushed if we have, say we have a Pull-a-Back-T test here and it's positive, we can flush this line. We can measure chlorine residual here to, we can flush it until the chlorine residual is back to its normal amount. We can flush it until, we have a negative test here if we determine that, it could be some contamination in the line here. Okay, any questions on flushing? All right. I think that is all I have. Any questions?
Not seeing any in chat. Anyone need to follow up? Okay.
Okay, I can go back and talk a little bit more about the hydraulic modeling and pressure.
That's up to you, Nam.
Okay, so I really want to emphasize for waterline replacement projects that we may need fire hydrant fire flow tests. So we get a lot of applicants that submit and they say there's no changes. Obviously, there's no new development and therefore no new pressure requirement or demand. So that may be true. However, we don't have that information, so we need the water system to provide that. Okay, so if we assume that if you're changing the water line, if you're changing the size or material of the water line, there's going to be a pressure change regardless. So it's up to the water system to show us that that is not the case, right? So if everything stays the same and you change the size, the pressure will change. It could increase, it could decrease depending on your supply. So now if you have a good, pressurizing system, good booster pumps and pressure tank, then it may be able to keep up with the new larger size where the pressure does remain the same. So the only way to kind of show us that is, again, the hydraulic modeling or the fire flow test. So a lot of applicants, like I said, will choose to do a fire flow test. So they'll do the fire flow test on their existing system, and they'll show that, they can meet the fire flow at well above 20 PSI. So changing the line to a 6-inch line or 8-inch line will have, will not be that significant. And then they'll pull the fire flow test again when they apply for the approval of construction application and show that their new line does meet the 20 PSI for all flow conditions. Like I said, we have some systems that are old and they have hydrants on there before fire flow was required and that are only producing 200 gallons a minute. So we recommend that the water system upgrade their water system components before upgrading their water lines to meet the standards. So if you do a water line replacement and you want to install a hydrant on there, ADQ is going to require you to meet the fire flow in that area. So that is going to be determined by your fire department or fire authority. So typical numbers as you'll see for if you have an in the area with a residential home, it's about 1,000 gallons a minute. Like I said, if you have 2-3-inch lines in the area, it's going to be very difficult to meet that. And we also understand that, we can't rip out all the system at once. There's other issues. So if you're going to not be able to meet the fire flow in that area, we need you to get permission from your fire authority to understand what the flow, duration, and pressure is that new hydrant or water line replacement project. So a lot of times they'll do a fire flow test after their excuse me, after their new line. They'll do and it will be come out to like say 500 gallons a minute for 2 hours at 25 psi. So the fire authority will sign off on it. Hopefully they note it and they know not to pull more than that at that hydrant. Now, if you run that hydrant and you're getting a pressure under 20 psi, now we're in an issue. Now we have an issue. ADQ can't approve your new water line because you're not meeting the minimum design requirement. So this will still cost the system to go back and install new components to be able to meet that pressure, or they need to remove the hydrants. Again, so a hydrant that is not able to produce the fire flow and pressure is worse than not having any hydrant at all, arguably. So, because it can create issues in the water system. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So again, if you have a water line replacement and you plan on reinstalling those hydrants, it does have to meet, have to be brought up to today's standards. So it'd be a good conversation to have with your fire authority in the area, what is required, and then what they're willing to accept. So a lot of systems, right, they have a master plan on updating the whole system. It's going to be over the next 5-10 years. So that may be good enough for the fire department to be like, okay, you can't meet 1,000 gallons per minute today, but your water line is leaking and you need it to be replaced. So we're going to design it for the future. We know not to pull 1,000 gallons per minute from this hydrant, and so they'll install the hydrant for future use. Again, that's always kind of the dilemma when we're looking for these water line replacement projects. The water system will justify that it needs to be done now because of water leaks and water breaks and whatnot. And then ADQ will argue that you need to upgrade your other water components first. That way you have the supply. So depending on, it'll be a case by case discussion on whether or not which scenario is more prevalent. So if you run into that case, ADQ can do a pre-application meeting with the applicant, the water system, where you can present your case and we can kind of give you some guidance on the best design, and also which way to go with it. Again, a lot of this has to do with the engineers and water system, but again, operators are the ones out there. They know how the system works, and so we definitely love their input to get some more realistic information rather than just calculations and models and all that. So, all right, so that's all I have. If you have any questions, we have a couple minutes. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Ebony.
Thank you very much, Nam, for that presentation. If I don't see any questions in the chat, but if you have further questions, please go ahead and email Nam directly. I believe you can see my screen and you can see his email there. For now, we're going to go ahead and take a quick 5-minute break in between presentations, and then we will pick back up with our next 2 presenters and then close out with a Q&A. Okay, see you in 5.
Okay. We've hit 5 minutes. We'll come back. I'm going to go on to our next presenter, Ryan Clark. Ryan, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, and also, I just realized my headset is not plugged in. So I don't know if anyone heard. We are back from the break. Thank you, Ryan. I will go ahead and give you control.
Right. Okay.
All right, we're up and visible.
I can see your screen.
Perfect. All right, well, good morning, everyone. I am Ryan Clark. I'm here to give the presentation on the revised total coliform rule, also known as RTCR for short. This presentation, we're going to be discussing managing your positive routine coliforms samples and what to do and triggered assessments. So quick little bit about me. I'm probably the newest guy on the block here at ADAQ. I'm born and raised here in Arizona. It seems that I'm kind of like a rare breed these days, being born and raised in Arizona and lived here my entire life. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I'm often seeking the most remote locations that our wonderful state has to offer. My educational pedigree, just to give you an idea of my credibility, I guess. I went to the greatest school in the state of Arizona and well, possibly the greatest school in the universe, ASU. Go Sun Devils. I loved it so much that I actually did it twice. I did my bachelor's degree in biology and then continued my journey down the yellow brick road. I wanted to study animals. I studied the environment. I went on to graduate school at ASU. Specifically, I studied the urban heat island that we all just absolutely despise here, especially if you live in the big city, and what the urban heat island effect has on wildlife. My species of choice was the black widow. I studied her behavior, specifically females, and I ultimately received my master's degree in biology. I come to ADEQ after doing some work with the Game and Fish Department. So I come from one regulating agency to another. Spent most of my time there studying non-game aquatic species. So, you know, frogs, garter snakes, snails and mussels. And, you know, all of these animals were quite directly impacted by water quality. So I have pretty good background in that area. I actually came to ADQ early this year. I'm really passionate about the environment. I have a very strong scientific background, which kind of makes me the perfect fit, like two halves of the whole. So enough about me. Let's get into some details. So what the RTCR does exactly, the rule specifically, is it establishes an MCL, maximum contaminant level, for the species E. coli. Unlike other analytes that measure concentrations, RTCR is a presence-absence rule. We just want to know if it's there or if it's not. Doesn't matter what the concentration is. This is especially important because E. coli is it's an acute contaminant. This means that it can get people sick and animals sick for that matter, very sick in a relatively short period of time, which is in contrast to all the other analytes that systems are required to sample for, with the exception of nitrate. Nitrate is also considered an acute contaminant. Which the the other analytes that you monitor for are chronic contaminants. So these are classified this way, meaning that they typically take a continuous exposure over very long periods of time to really show side effects on humans. So according to the Mayo Clinic, young children and older adults, typically, people with compromised immune systems, they have the greatest risk of developing life-threatening, actually specifically a life-threatening form of kidney failure due to E. coli exposure. So with E. coli, you actually can become ill as soon as one single day after exposure to it. Sometimes it can take, more than a week to show up. One single cell of E. coli can duplicate itself about every 4 minutes. And it can survive in a plethora of a very wide range of temperatures. Its optimum temperature is like 90, almost 98 degrees, which is, very similar to our body, right? Some of the signs and symptoms that are included with E. coli, you could have stomach cramping, some pain or tenderness in the abdominal area. Nausea and vomiting is common in some people. And the most common thing is diarrhea, which can range from very mild to very severe. It's suggested that you need to contact your doctor if your diarrhea is persistent, severe, or if you actually find blood in your stool. So that's a little bit about E. coli. We're talking about the revised rule today. And that kind of sparks an interest, piques the question, why is this a revised rule? In the very near future, we're going to have a revised lead and copper rule. So how is the revised total coliform rule different from the original total coliform rule? Well, the old rule really focused on obtaining clean samples free of BAC-T, right? So a system would take a sample, it would get a positive, then you would be required to take another sample, and if you got another positive, to keep going, keep taking samples day after day after day until you got a clean sample. So the industry looked at this and said, this isn't working, we need to figure out a better way. So the revised rule actually uses E. coli and total coliforms to initiate this find and fix approach. It really addresses fecal contamination that could enter into the distribution systems, and it requires public water systems to perform assessments to identify like sanitary defects and then to actually take action to correct them, which is a big portion of how this rule has been improved. So on your screen, you have a Venn diagram. The big picture is, I would say, because this is Arizona and I love turtles, not all turtles are tortoises, but all tortoises are turtles. So total coliform and E. coli, like I said, these are used as indicators for potential risk. They come from this, big family of microbes. So on the outermost ring, you see microbes, which are, we're representing this as all organisms of microscopic size. This includes bacteria, viruses, parasitic protozoa. These could include good things and bad things, beneficial, detrimental. The next ring inside that is we're taking out the total coliforms portion of the group out of the microbes. This group is closely related to bacteria. They're the most part, they're not harmful to humans. We have many total coliforms living in symbiosis with us. Our natural microbiome in our gut includes, total coliforms and E. coli living, in our deep down in our gut without detriment. You then have fecal coliforms, which is another subset of the coliforms, right? That obviously come from feces, not just human, but animal waste as well. And then you have the E. coli bacteria. Now there are many different types of E. coli bacteria. Like I had mentioned before, there are some that do live in the human stomach that do not cause ill effects, but there are specific species of E. coli bacteria that are detrimental. So we use the presence of total coliform as kind of like a good indicator of a potential pathway of microbial contamination into the distribution system of your water system. So, some terminology, you turn in your samples to the lab, you request some BACT results. We use TC positive as an acronym for total coliform positive, meaning that it is present. TC negative, total coliform is negative, meaning that there is no total coliforms in that sample. Then you have the E. coli positive, obviously present, and then E. coli negative, absent. So in a perfect day, we want to see negatives and negatives across the board. This is a good picture from the lab. The picture on your lower left is a total coliform positive result. So you have negative on the left, and on the right is a sample that has displayed that there is a presence for total coliform. Then once they determine that there's presence, then they run it through another analysis where they use UV light to show if if E. coli is actually present in that. So they put the sample, they add their test substrate into it, and then they run it to the UV light. If it glows, we have E. coli. If it doesn't glow, there's no E. coli. And this is a pretty basic, give you a basic idea of what the lab does to give you your results. So I have a couple of frequently kind of asked questions that we get, and I'm going to walk us through. So one of the first ones that we often get is, when are my RT-PCR results due? Like most of all of the the samples that you have to send in for analysis, they're all due. The data need to be received on the 10th day after the monitoring period ends. All your samples, they need to come from your MSSP. It has to be pre-approved by your regulating agency, whether it's PDQ or Maricopa, or if you just fall under the ADQ umbrella. If you want it to count for compliance, so you can't just go take your BACT samples from any sample tap. It has to be specifically written out in your MSSP, and approved prior to taking the sample. So if you have an MSSP that is out of date, or you want to add some additional sites to it, now is the perfect time to update that and get it sent over to your regulated agency. So we said 10th day after the monitoring period ends. So any data that is received after this date will be considered late data, and the system will be given a reporting violation. I want you to keep this in mind. We'll kind of revisit this idea a little bit later, but ultimately it's up to the water system to get that result to your regulated agency in that time. It is not up to the lab. You can check the box and request that the lab upload it, but if the lab fails to do so, it is the water system that is going to receive the violation. So please keep that in mind. Again, we'll revisit this in a little bit. Total coliform positive, E. coli positive results are due within 24 hours of notification of the results from the lab. again, we'll discuss that a little bit more in detail in a second. So I am water system. I have a total coliform or maybe I have an E. coli positive. What do I do? Well, first, you want to make sure that you contact your delegated regulatory agency, and you want to do this by the end of the day. If this is after business hours that you received this, please leave a voicemail, send an email, do both of them, and then follow up the very next business day with us. It is imperative that this information is construed to the regulatory agency in a very timely fashion. Again, we talked about this earlier with E. coli. This is something that can get somebody sick very, very quickly, and this can be life-threatening. So it's imperative that this be done in a very timely manner. What do you do next? Well, take your repeats. So you have a positive, you have sent in your MSSP, you have it approved. Take your repeat samples. They're always going to be upstream, downstream, and the original location that your sample came back positive. And then you need to take any raw water samples at any of the wells that were active and contributing to the finished water at the time of this positive result. If not all of your wells were active at the time, which is fine, that happens all the time, systems rotate through wells. Only sample the wells that were active. And please, please let your compliance assistant coordinator know which Ls were active and not active at the time of this result. This is really important information because when we get the results through, we almost always assume that all of the wells that are listed are active at that time. So when the results come through, we will automatically be looking for a groundwater sample from every single well unless this information is divulged ahead of time or divulged to your agency. So please, open lines of communication. So after you got your results off of your repeats, you took your groundwater samples, the next step is that you need to determine is if you actually triggered a boil water advisory, or if you triggered an assessment, or if you get an all clear. Assessments are due 30 calendar days from the second that you are notified of the repeat sample positives. I said we'd revisit this. This is a question that we often get. Is it 24 hours from when the lab calls or they email the notification to the public water system? Or is it 24 hours from when the public water system hears the voicemail or opens their email? So when they view it. This is a very interesting question. To answer this question, bluntly, it's 24 hours from the lab notification. So you need to take your repeat and any of the groundwater samples within 24 hours of the notification from the lab about the total coliform positive or E. coli positive. Some people ask, well, how does ADQ or how does the agency know when the lab notified me? Well, on the DWAR form, there is a space that the lab is required to fill out in the event that they get a total coliform positive or an E. coli positive. I'll talk a little bit more about how you can avoid, like checking your emails and voicemails over the weekends or the holidays, but the lab does display exactly, they tell when the water system was notified, and that's when the clock starts. So lab notification happened. It actually happened over the weekend. Is the public water system expected to, check its email on the weekend? So no one is ever a fan of checking their work emails or voicemails over the weekend. But let's say the lab does notify the system that there is a total coliform positive on Saturday or Sunday, or hey, we got a holiday coming up, right? Are you expected to check those over the weekend? Well, the short answer is yes. So sorry to inform you, but bacteria does not take weekends. It doesn't go on holiday. They don't take sick days. So please, if you are waiting on sample results, please check your email, your voicemail on the weekends. If you have not received those results back from your specific lab. ADQ expects, which is in rule, that repeat samples have to be collected within 24 hours after the notification. So if you're gonna have to work on the weekend, I mean, it is possible. Again, I'll give you some tips on how to avoid this. Another question that we often get is our remote operator. Am I required to check on sample results, or can I wait until I return to the site? I understand there's a lot of rural areas which require us, systems to have remote operators. Are remote operators required to check their sample results before their scheduled return to the system? A really good question, but yes, I mean, remember that you may need to change like your schedule in order to take repeat samples within the 24-hour notification window. Remember that anyone that's trained can actually take a BACT sample. It doesn't have to be the certified operator of that system. So if you are a remote operator, it's highly suggested that you train somebody in the area of that water system to take those repeat samples in the event that you can't make it back to the system in time. Stuff happens, life happens. The world is a lot different than it was, in recent years. So have a backup plan. Always have a backup plan. You can leave them bottles just in case. Bottles are free from the lab, so you can get extra bottles and have them ready to go. Just always have a backup plan in case something comes up like this. Another question. Well, my lab is closed on the weekends and holidays. Can I wait and take my repeat samples until next week if it is a weekend or a holiday? Again, no, you can't wait. You got to take the samples within 24 hours. This is the reoccurring theme of today, is you got to take your repeat samples within 24 hours. There are several labs that accept samples on the weekends. There are some that accept them on the holidays. We're not requiring you to change your labs permanently, but these labs are available to accept your samples when your regular lab or your local lab can't do this for various reasons. Just know, if you do not take your samples within the 24 hours, you've now triggered a level 1 assessment. And we'll dive into that. If you are having problems identifying another lab, or who takes what on which days, please reach out to your compliance assistant coordinator for your county or your regulated agency. They can assist you in pointing you in the right direction and helping you get your samples reviewed. Without further ado, I told you I would give you some recommendations. So we have recommendations in order to reduce the missed and or late monitoring issues that we see. So it's highly suggested to sample early in the month, right? So you got to take your July samples, try to get them done at the beginning of the monitoring period, right? And honestly, this goes for, you could apply this to any of the other rules. It really is best practice to get into that kind of mindset is, hey, I have a sample to take. I need to take it as early as I possibly can, right? So we're not waiting till the end of the monitoring period to take those samples. This allows the lab, time to analyze the samples and then return the results to the system before the due date. So like I said before, I mean, let's say you have a July sample, you take it at the very end of July, you get it to the lab, right? You took your samples in July, but the lab doesn't get the results back to you until after the 10th day, or aren't reported just because due to capacity issues. The water system is the one that will get the violation for a late reporting. So it's just best. It always allows adequate time in the event that there is a problem with your samples, in case you need to resample or what have you. So. Okay. So I brushed over this a couple of times already, but we can dive into this topic. How do I know if I've triggered an assessment, and if I've triggered a level 1 or level 2 assessment? So here's a little bit about why, kind of the purpose of your assessments. So why assessments? Well, in the very beginning, I had mentioned how the revised total coliform rule was different than the original total coliform rule. This is the portion of the find and fix portion of it. So any potential pathways that are allowing pathogens and possibly contaminations into the distribution system, this is what the assessments allow to help. They also help identify if you're using the proper sampling techniques. That could be an issue too. So the assessment is really just kind of a take a step back and say, okay, we've had a positive, we've had a positive repeat. Now we know there's an issue. Let's find out where the issue is. So what is it that triggers a level 1 assessment? So for very small systems, which is a majority of the systems in the state, if you take less than 40 routine samples per month, and you get more than one total coliform positive, so that would be your total coliform positive and then your repeat. For much larger systems, if you take 40 or more samples per month, the threshold is 5% of the total samples have to be total coliform positive in order to trigger an assessment. You can also trigger an assessment if the system does not take all of the required repeats. This includes your groundwater or any of your upstream, downstream. If you take them at the wrong location, they're not included on your MSSP. And finally, if you don't take your repeats within 24 hours of the lab notification. So remember, we got to take our repeats within 24 hours. If you don't do that, automatically triggers a level 1 assessment. The level 1 assessments, they really can be done by the public water system or the operator, any of the operators. It's really just kind of a basic examination of your source water, the treatment, distribution system, your O&M. The assessment, the public water system must correct any kind of sort of sanitary defects. It's due 30 days after the system triggers the assessment. If you need to, talk to your compliance assistant coordinator. We have templates available. Our website, under compliance assistant, we have templates for that are available for you to pick up at any time that you want. So we're here to help. So level 2 assessments. A level 2 assessment, they're more in depth. They are required to be conducted specifically by a certified operator of the same grade or higher as that specific public water system grade. These level 2 assessments, they are triggered by either an E. coli MCL violation, so confirmed E. coli positive. If there's a boil water advisory that needs to be issued, which would occur if you have triggered an E. coli MCL violation. Or if this is your second level 1 in a rolling 12-month period. So if you tested in July, you had total coliform positive, triggered a level 1 assessment, you did your level 1 assessment, June or August was fine, September you did the same thing. So in September, you would automatically be bumped up to a level 2 assessment. The level 2 assessment is just like the level 1. It's due 30 calendar days from the trigger date. Your trigger date is 30 days from notification of your repeat positives. Again, your specific compliance assistant coordinator or your delegated county, they can help you with templates. Also please visit our website. It's a wealth of knowledge. There's tons of stuff on there. In the assessment, there are a couple of different elements that you're going to look over. Assessments, they do contain information about events that may have impacted the recent change in water quality, maybe some changes that occurred in the distribution system or operations and maintenance. Maybe there was some recent changes in the source or a treatment technique that the system has been implementing, or maybe there's changes in your sampling protocol. These are all elements that are going to be in the assessment that you will review and go through. So what you're really going to be looking for is sanitary defects. A sanitary defect is a pathway that allows microbes into your system. This is exactly how the rule is written. Defects, they provide a pathway for entry of microbial contamination. This is a great picture to show, what a defect is that could allow, contamination from we'll call that surface water right there. So I have some examples of sanitary defects. So sanitary defects, they can vary, but some examples are storage issues, like you have plant or animal activity, improper sealing of your storage tanks. This is a good picture that's showing a leaky storage tank that has plant organic matter growing out of the side of that, and that is just a pathway for contamination to get into the system for finished water. Source water issues, let's see. I have, for source water issues, cracks or maybe holes that are visible in the well seals or in the well casing. There's a great picture of this on your bottom left. Some unsanitary conditions at the wellhead could be a really good example of a sanitary defect. I know you can't really see it probably very well, but the picture on the bottom right, at this wellhead, there is not one, but 2 dead mice that are at the bottom around the wellhead right there. And all that black little splatter is all, you know, mice feces and, you know, dead bugs and stuff like that. So this really is just kind of an unsanitary condition, you know, at the system that needs to be addressed. That could potentially be a source of contamination. Other things that could be sanitary defects, you could have operational issues. Maybe there's just an untrained sampler. Some of us know how simple it is to contaminate a BACT sample if you aren't extremely careful with that. Taking that sample and doing it following you know, the protocol to a T. Another thing is, you know, failure to follow your sample sieving plan. The system could be doing some inadequate disinfection practices or sanitary defects. The distribution system issues that you possibly could run into is maybe failure to maintain adequate pressure. Nam had mentioned earlier, you know, system falls below the 20 PSI threshold, and they had a hose that's in the pool. It could siphon back into the system. So maintaining adequate pressure is a major way to fend off, you know, contamination. Pump failure, you know, pump failure could be, you know, a reason that you aren't able to maintain adequate pressure. Or you know, systems that are having issues with improper flushing. Again, back to Nam had described fire flow and their flushing programs and how stagnant water could sit there. Same is true for, you know, total coliforms. You know, if the chlorine residual falls because it's been sitting in stagnant water, then it's not protected against these things, and it's just a perfect pathway for contamination. Cross connection and backflow issues we just discussed. So those are our sanitary defects. So what steps need to be taken during a boil water situation? You know, nobody ever wants to be in this situation. It's always, you know, kind of a chip on our shoulder if we have to, you know, put out a boil water advisory. It's not something that any of us really want to go through, but it's important. And again, this is something that is a very high priority because you know, people can get sick and ill very, very rapidly. So it's just really best to be prepared and you know, understand what results can actually trigger a boil water advisory and what you kind of need to do in that event. So we'll go through that. It's kind of a pop quiz. Obviously, I can't hear anybody, but I'll give you a second to think about this. But which of these 3 results would trigger a boil water advisory? So is it A? So if you have a routine sample that is total coliform positive and E. coli negative, and one of the repeats are total coliform positive and E. coli negative, does that constitute a trigger a boil water advisory? If you have a routine sample that is total coliform positive, E. coli negative, and one of the repeats are actually missing from the set, does that mean that you have to do a boil water advisory? C, if a routine sample is total coliform positive, E. coli negative, and one of the repeats are total coliform positive and E. coli undetermined, which is rare, it does occur if that is the case. Does that trigger a boil water advisory? Or is it none of the above? Well, let's see. The answer is C. So here are some, this kind of lays out what lead to a boil water advisory. This actual little template is available on our website. Can help you, kind of determine where you need to go depending on what your routine sample is and what your repeat sample is. So the ones that trigger boil water advisories are total coliform positive, E. coli negative, and the repeats are total coliform positive and that undetermined. So if you get a result that is undetermined on E. coli for your repeat, automatically triggers a boil water advisory. Though this scenario is rare, but it does occur. Another one is if your routine sample is total coliform positive, E. coli negative, and then your repeat is positive, so total coliform positive and E. coli positive, that triggers a boil water advisory. If your routine sample is total coliform positive and E. coli positive, and the repeats are total coliform positive, but you're missing any or all of the repeats are missing, that would trigger a boil water advisory. And yeah, so that is, yep, those are all four. So those are the four scenarios where a boil water advisory would be in effect. So, I have triggered, I've got an E. coli positive. It's positive, it's present, it's there in my results. So what do I do next? So you kind of determine that the system has triggered your boil water advisory. Call us, call your regulated agency, call your compliance assistant coordinator. Like I said before, email them, call them. If they don't answer, leave a voicemail. If you don't hear from them, call them back the next business day. This needs to occur by the end of the day, even if it's on a weekend or a holiday. But we all know how to avoid those now, so we're not going to be doing those. But again, like I said, if we don't pick up, leave the voicemail. But you need to. The big message, the takeaway message from this is act now. Don't wait. This is an acute contaminant. Remember, people can get sick very, very rapidly with this. So we cannot wait on this. This needs to be done as soon as humanly possible. So Tier 1 public notice is required. You'll need to fill out a Tier 1 public notice and distribute it within 24 hours of notification from your results from the lab, okay? We can provide you with the template for your boil water advisory, but be sure to get ADEQ or your delegated agency's approval of your public notice before distribution. So our approval time is really cut pretty short. Like we are trying to get these back to you within 2 hours. So that's what our goal is. But we want to see it before it gets distributed. So there's a couple of things that's required in the public notice. In the public notice, there's mandatory language, which has to be present. Don't worry, I'm not going to read this slide to you, but you will need to include the things that are in red, like what caused the boil water advisory, what are the significant dates, like the date of the routine or the date of the repeat sample, the date of the lab notification. These are all important things that have to be included in the boil water advisory. There's more mandatory language. What should the customers do? They need to know if there's going to be an alternative source of water provided by the system. Is bottled water going to be available? This is information that needs to be construed to the customers. You need to specifically say what are fecal coliforms, where are they found, What are the risks that are associated with drinking water that is contaminated? What are the symptoms that could be present if the water is consumed? Those are the things, those wonderful descriptions that I gave at the beginning of the presentation. You also need to include the corrective action. So what's the corrective action that the system is actually taking, and how long is it estimated to take? What are you guys doing? Disinfection? Is there a repair that needs to occur? Maybe there's a, et cetera, et cetera. But please try to be as specific as possible, especially with the dates and the time frames. If you can, be down to the minute, by Wednesday at 5 p.m. we plan to have this resolved. So and then you need to include the contact information for the person, contact information for someone that actually can be reached in the event that there's questions or concerns. So the rule actually says that you need to include the name, the business address, and phone number of the water system's owner, water system's operator, or a designee of the public water system as a source of additional information concerning this notice. So this is important to have somebody that somebody can reach out to if they have questions about this advisory. Once all your information is in the public notice, you'll need to get with your regulatory agency and get approval of this. This is to ensure that everything that is required to be in there is present and accurate. And if any changes or additions are actually added to it after the fact, there really can't be any language that de-escalates the situation. It needs to be very firm. We don't want to see somebody put in their advisory, if you drink the water, you may or may not get sick. So we don't want to leave any gray areas in there. And then how should it be distributed? So once your public notice is approved, it'll need to be distributed. Both community water systems and non-community water systems need to pick 2 distribution methods. Distribution can be done by direct hand delivery, posting in a place that everyone could see, like a billboard or near the mailboxes. You can do it via media, like radio, TV station, those kind of things. Non-community water systems, like schools and campgrounds, they can do hand delivery, walking around and handing out, paper information. They can post them at the entrances, post them in, really in highly visible locations. There are other forms of distribution like pre-recorded calls or banners. They may be acceptable, but they really require approval by ADEQ or your regulated agency before you distribute those. So once the public notice or the boil water advisory has been distributed, you'll need to submit the final version to us along with a completed certificate of public notice distribution. Then start your level 2 assessment to identify any issues like, the cracked well casing, or hey, there's animal feces in the well or the well house. We're having backflow issues. Just remember that the level 2 assessment must be performed by an operator of the same grade or higher as the public water system. Make sure that ADEQ or your regulated agency has all the necessary DWAR forms for your routine repeat groundwater samples. If you don't have an MSSP, make one, submit one with your assessment. If you have one but need to make changes, do so at that time. You can contact your compliance assistant coordinator for approval. Perform any of the necessary corrective actions like fixing a leaky tank or disinfecting a well house, and then let your regulatory agency know what's going on. Open lines of communication, please. All of the CACs, all the compliance assistant coordinators are here to help and answer any questions that you might have. At the end of this presentation, I'll give you a list of the most updated assignments. So So after you found and fixed any of your issues, take special purpose samples at the original upstream and downstream and your raw water, if that's applicable. Mark on the DWAR form that these samples are special purpose and not for compliance, and request that you receive an all clear notice from your regulated agency. Once you receive the results back, or once you receive the results back from the lab. The all clear notice is something that a system can use to let all of their customers know that a boil water advisory is no longer in effect. Let's see, in the interest of time. So what does the regulatory agency do during the boil water advisory? We determine if you have triggered a boil water. We send you to the public notice template. We give you instructions on how to do that. We notify the county health department and the ADQ water emergency response team. And we also review and approve the completed public notices prior to being distributed. And the last thing before I finish, this is something new that I wanted to go over quickly. This is just a brief overview, but so this year we have started allowing systems to go on quarterly monitoring for RTCR. So who qualifies? Well, it has to be a groundwater system, either a transient or a non-transient, non-community system who serve less than 1,000 people, 1,000 people or less. So community water systems are not eligible for this. You have to have at least 12 months with no RTCR violations. So E. coli MCL, mismonitoring, late reporting, missing or late triggered assessments, missing or late seasonal startup certifications, not following your approved MSSP. Those are all items that would make you would not allow you to qualify for quarterly monitoring. Your last sanitary survey has to be free of sanitary defects. If there was a sanitary defect that was found, the defects have to have been corrected, and they need to be presented with photo documentation sent to your regulatory agency's inspector to get the all clear. So total coliform positive or for your routine sample on quarterly is similar, but also different than how your routine monitoring, monthly monitoring goes. Repeat sampling and assessments still apply if you trigger. You have to take your original upstream, downstream, and repeat samples within 24 hours of notification from the lab. You must take triggered your groundwater sample. The one main difference is you will have to take 3 routine samples, which are going to be your triggered samples, in the very next calendar month. We want to see that those samples are spread out throughout the month. They can be taken all on the same day if samples are taken from different sites. So you would have to have an MSSP that has pre-approved multiple RTCR locations to pull samples from. But if you're a very, very, very small system, that's not an option, and it would have to be taken 3 samples throughout the month. Results of additional routine samples are subject to repeat assessments and the groundwater rule. So what causes the system to lose their eligibility for quarterly monitoring, and they have to go back to monthly monitoring? Level 2 assessment is triggered, an E. coli MCL violation, RTCR treatment technique violation, Mr. Late assessment, Mr. Late seasonal startup form, 2 RTCR missed monitoring violations in a rolling 12-month period. So yes to any of those things. Monthly monitoring the system will go back to monthly monitoring starting the very next calendar month. So this RTCR routine quarterly monitoring flowchart is available on our website under the RTCR rule. So All right, so I got a pop quiz. Last question, true or false? A routine sample is total coliform positive, E. coli negative, and one of the repeats are total coliform positive and E. coli negative. This system is on quarterly monitoring, so that means this system will have to return to monthly monitoring the following month. Is that true or false? Well, it's false. Remember, the things that can push the system back on monthly monitoring is level 2 assessment is triggered, E. coli violation, RTCR treatment technique violation, Mr. Late assessment, Mr. Late seasonal startup form, or 2 RTCR mismonitoring violations in a rolling 12-month period. So that's my presentation. Here is a list of the most up-to-date compliance assistant coordinators for the state of Arizona. Please try to make note of who your coordinator is for your county. I also have the MAP coordinator's information up there and the unit manager's information up there. I know I'm like at time, so I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm done, and I turn it back over to you, Ebony.
Thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. If we do have someone in the chat who would like to go right back to your first pop quiz question about the E. coli and determining the results.
This one? I think so.
Yes, there was someone in the comment, Lorena, who answered B, and then you said C. If you can expand just for a minute on why C is the correct answer.
Okay. Yeah, so, okay, so they thought it was B, and why C is the answer. So the E. coli undetermined is that the lab is unable to get a proper result from the sample. They're unable to determine if E. coli is in there or not. So we use that as a kind of a default that, well, we know there's total coliform. We aren't exactly sure if there's E. coli in there, and we've already gone beyond the 24-hour period of time. At that point, it's just kind of a best to be safe than sorry until we're able to determine if it's all clear or not. So like we said, this is something that can get people sick very, very quickly. If we aren't able to verify if there is E. coli in the water, then boil water needs to be issued at that time. I hope I answered that question for you. And again, if you said Lorena, was it Lorena, right?
Yes, Lorena.
Okay. Yeah, I think she's in she's in my county. So please, if you want to discuss this further, give me a call. I'm happy to chat with you about it and yeah, discuss this in further detail.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan, for that presentation. Currently now, we're going to go ahead and skip to a 10-minute break, and then we're going to wrap up with our last presentation of the afternoon or the morning afternoon-ish. So go ahead and take a quick minute stretch, and we will see you all back in 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, everyone. Welcome back from your 10-minute break. We're going to move on to our next presenter. Got your message. Next presenter, and I'm going to go ahead and hand over control to you, Sergio.
Thank you, Ebony. Okay, can you see my screen?
Looks like you're good to go.
Great. Well, hello everyone. So today we'll be going over the approval to construct ATC and approval of construction AOC process. My name is Sergio Mejia. I'm an environmental engineer, specialist 1 here with the engineering review unit. I'm going on 2 years coming December. So let's get started. Okay, so there are 3 main topics we will go over today. We'll look at the ATC, the exemption and AOC process, and then finish off with a summary. So we'll delve into the Arizona Administrative Code for each topic and some examples. And so before we begin, I would like to make it clear that an ATC is required before applying for the AOC. So it's a 2-step process. So first, let's go over the ATC phase. So per the Arizona Administrative Code R18-5-505, construction should not start on any water system before receiving an ATC permit. So as seen in the highlighted portion, any change, modification, or addition will need to go through review and proper testing before any water component can be operated. So before construction begins, ADEQ will need to ensure local guidelines are incorporated into the design of these new facilities. So continuing on with R18-5-505, a complete ATC application includes the completed ATC application, the design report, analysis of a proposed new source of water. This is specific to the type of water component, most likely a well, and then other pertinent data required to issue the approval to construction. So furthermore, proper verification of the document should be provided. So the ATC app only requires the applicant and applicant's agent signature, which is usually the consultant or engineer. The construction plans and design report require the professional engineer's seal and signature on the cover page. The seal must include the signature and date signed, and the seal must be on each sheet of the construction plans. So basically, to sum up the needed documents, the primary documents needed are a complete ATC application, the design report, the construction plans, stamped by a professional engineer, and the review fee. So the review fee varies on the component type, but when an ATC application is submitted, we double check to make sure the appropriate fee is calculated before sending an invoice. So there is a section in the ATC application to get an estimate of what the total review fee will be, but we will make sure to double check and make sure we're not overcharging or undercharging an application. So a water service agreement is needed for construction of subdivisions. This form is an agreement between the consultant and the public water system to allow use of water. However, this does not only apply to subdivisions, it also applies for other water components. So ADEQ requires some form of a letter from the public water system, but if the public water system is the applicant, then the water service agreement is not needed. So now we'll go over the different types of water facilities that need an ATC permit. So these are the facilities that require an ATC permit. So we require it for the water line, well, storage tank, water treatment, such as chlorinators, blending, UV, GAC, booster pumps, and hydropneumatic tanks or pressure tanks. So each facility is reviewed accordingly to the type of function it serves in the public water system. So as an engineer reviewer, we follow the guidelines and rules set forth in the Engineering Bulletin number 8 and 10, the Arizona Administrative Code, the American Water Works Association, and local standards set by the county. So next we'll jump into what is needed for each water component to obtain an ATC permit. So here are the documents needed for a waterline ATC approval. As Nam went over earlier in this webinar, first for the waterline, as always, we'll need that ATC application. And specific to the waterline approval, there's a section 8C that needs to be completely filled out that has all the flow, demands, and pressure for that project. And then the design report, so the hydraulic analysis or the model, the calibration method, the construction plan, and the water service agreement. And it must be filled out if the applicant is not the public water system owner. So some common deficiencies that we'll see on waterline projects are the ATC application is not completely filled out. Specific to section 8C, the hydraulic analysis has no calibration method. And then on the construction plans, usually we're missing some standard detail drawings that we always look for, such as fire hydrants, air release valves, the waterline trench / bedding, or the blow-off valves. And also specific to construction plans, when we have water and sewer main crossings, we always look for the elevation difference to be recorded on the construction plan. So that's something to keep note of. So for well requirements, these are the items that are needed. So of course the ATC application, and then in the design report for a well, the pump curve, then the construction plan, we need the plan and profile view of the wellhead, and then a new source analysis. It must be completely filled out and signed by the laboratory. There is an option on the ATC application to submit it with the ATC, or you can submit it with the AOC. Now, the only potential risk that we'll run into if you decide on submitting that new source analysis with the AOC is that the water source is unknown, so there might be potential for MCLs, and then we'll have to halt that well ATC and make sure that we address that MCL and get the appropriate treatment. So some common deficiencies for the that we find in well reviews are missing analysis of the pump curve, missing that plan or profile view of the wellhead, or missing component details such as shut-off valves, pressure release valves. The new source analysis is incomplete or more than a year old, so that will require resampling for total coliform, nitrite, and nitrate. And for the storage tank ATC approval, again, the ATC application, and there is a section specific for each component. The design report, we look for the storage capacity calculations and the specifications of the tank. And then on the construction plan, of course, the plan and profile view with all the details related to the storage tank. And common deficiencies for the storage tanks are missing specifications, so missing the tank details and dimensions, missing the plan or profile view, along with some components that aren't always recorded on the construction plan, such as the overflow drain, sampling tap at the discharge of the storage tank. Now, going on to the water treatment ATC requirements, again, the ATC application, and there is a specific section for treatment. And it is important to note that each treatment type may require more data or information than others. So usually the more documentation and details, the better. So for the design report, we look for the specifications of the treatment/disinfection component, the water quality analysis, and then again on construction plan, as much detail that can be provided, the better. So the plan and profile view of the treatment. And then common deficiencies that we find in treatment review is just missing those specifications of the treatment type, no water quality analysis before and after treatment installation. So we like to see that just to make sure that it's being designed appropriately. And for booster pumps and hydro tank requirements, again, ATC application needs to be completely filled out. The design report, we look for the pump curve of the booster pump and the specifications. And in construction plans, we look for that plan and profile view. So common deficiencies for booster pumps and hydro tanks are the incorrect payment. So we charge per component, not per unit. So if there's 2 booster pumps, we'll charge for each booster pump for the review. And other deficiencies are missing specifications and missing the pump curve. And usually the pump curve is provided by the manufacturer. So now we'll look at a waterline ATC example that's been filled out. So here's page 1 of the ATC application. So we look for the project information to be completed with the project name and description. So for this specific project, it's an on-site distribution line, different parcels. So this one's specific to parcel 2 with about 3,800 linear foot of 8-inch dip water line. And then we also look for section 2 to be completed with the applicant's information, and section 3 with the applicant's agent, which is usually the engineer or consultant, to be completely filled out. And then the public water system contact person, or it can be checked off if the applicant is the public water system owner. And then here for section 5, we look for the site information just to get a better idea of where the project is located. And then moving on to page 2 of the ATC application, section 6 can be completed if there are any relevant permits or documents pertaining to the project. And then section 7 must always be filled out with the accurate public water system information. So here the water system name and the water system number. It is an existing public water system. And then there's no need to grade the system. We have that on our file. And then for waterline projects, this is the most important section on the ATC application here. So section 8 is where we see common deficiencies due to not being completed. So for subsection A, we look for the total number of service connections for this application. For this specific project, there was an 83 service connections for a residential single family project. And then as we see in subsection B, the total population to be served by the system is 266. And then subsection C is usually where there's always missing information. So we look for this to be completely filled out. So as we can see in subsection C, we have the average design flow for the project, the peak daily demand flow, the required fire flow, and the fire flow and peak daily demand. And then in subsection B, we look for the total details for the water line. So for this project, as mentioned in the project description on page 1, it's 8-inch diameter of about 3,800 linear foot. and the material is ductile iron pipe. You can include a station, but usually we'll catch that on their construction plan and verify their total correct amount of feet of water line for the project. And then here's just a snapshot of page 5 where for the waterline ATC example, just showing that both the applicant and the applicant's agent should completely fill out and sign this section for verification. And then moving on to a well construction drawing example. So here, what I'd like to start off with the general notes. So this can be found on our engineering webpage, which I'll provide the link later in this presentation. But the general notes that we look for are pretty straightforward. We make sure we have notes for the minimum pipe cover of 3 feet, and then all pipes and valves should conform to current AWWA standards and with our engineering bulletin number 10. And then all connections have national standard threads in accordance with MAG 360-1. And all new water lines shall be pressure/leakage tested. And then all new water systems components or equipment shall be disinfected and flushed per our engineering bulletin number 8. And then these are just extra notes here, but the main ones we look for are the minimum pipe cover note, the pressure/leakage testing note, and the disinfection note, and then the NSF 60 and 61 note, which I did skip, but is right here. And then we look for the basis of bearing for the project to get a better idea of relocation. And then the materials and quantities list is more specific to a waterline project. So we look for the total amount of linear foot of the waterline that is for the project and any supporting components for that project. And then over here, we have a well plan view. So here's the well plan view. Also attached here is a storage tank. But we look for all the components to be called out and referenced. So if I look at note 10, can look over here, and it's an emergency chlorination tank, can verify that all the components are there. So as I mentioned, we always look for that air release valve with the pressure gauge. So that's note number 4, can be found right there. And then also look for the site location, which is provided here, and the vicinity map. And as always, signed and sealed by a professional engineer registered in Arizona. And then here we have the well profile view. So we can get a view of the profile of the wellhead. So as you know, I mentioned the note number 4, here the air release valve that we always check for. And then note number 5, the check valve that is located there. Including as much detail as possible is always important. And you can include general notes as well. And then the pumping schematic for the wellhead. And then the professional engineer's seal and signature. And so moving on to our engineering review unit goal. So per the Arizona Administrative Code, the review is under a licensing time frame that measures the total time to complete a review of an application. So the internal goal is 15 days to complete the review. And this is usually met when there are no deficiencies on the application. When there are deficiencies on the application, a deficiency letter is sent to the owner and engineer with an explanation of the items that will need to be corrected for approval. The deficiency letter is sent with a deadline that is set based on the amount of deficiencies found and complexity of the project. So for example, a really common deficiency for a waterline project is Section 8C on the ATC application not being completely filled out. For So if that's the only deficiency for a project, we're not going to give a 30-day time frame to correct that deficiency. We'll give usually a 10 or 15-day deficiency deadline. That is an appropriate amount of time to complete that deficiency. Now, if it's missing if that waterline project that was submitted, it's missing a calibration method, if it's missing the hydraulic analysis, if there's no materials and quantities list on the construction plans, for something that's going to require more time to correct, then that's when we'll give, a 30-day deficiency timeline to correct those. So the amount of days, as I said, is given to complete the deficiency correction. So it's typically 15 or 30 days. And as I said, sometimes it may be less or more. So one way we can actually avoid minor deficiencies and help develop an application ready for approval is to conduct a pre-application meeting. This is done virtually. And so before submitting an ATC application, the applicant can request a pre-app meeting where we can discuss project details, ask questions on both ends, and explain the process in more detail. This can be scheduled at our group email that is monitored daily. So that is here, WQD_DWSER@azdeq.gov. So you can send an email asking for a pre-app meeting. So basically, send an email to our group email and we'll respond with available times and dates. Usually we schedule it for a 1-hour time frame. It should not take any longer than that. If it needs to take longer than that, then we are available to discuss it further. But once you select that date and time, we will send a Google Meets invite with that date and time selected, and then we'll look forward to that meeting. So now we'll take a detour from the ATC and AOC process, and we'll delve into the exemption process. So this is per the Arizona Administrative Code R18-5-505, sections B3 and 4. So before we begin, I want to clarify that not every project can be exempt from plan review. So we will look at the rule, the qualifications, and items needed for exemption. So per the Arizona Administrative Code R18-5-505B3, the rule states that a project can be exempt from plan review as long as it is in compliance and the structural revision, addition, extension, or modification has a project cost under $12,500, or is a water line that is not for subdivision and has a project cost of more than $12,500 but less than $50,000, and has a design that is sealed and signed by a PE registered in Arizona. And so per R18-5-505B4, upon completion of a project for exemption, the public water system must submit a fair market value cost estimate of the project that includes receipts, invoices, the name of the design and review engineer, and the project completion date and total construction time. So this pretty much sums up the Arizona Administrative Code rules for exemptions. And so we'll go more into detail of what is expected for the ADEQ exemption process. So first, let's look at the qualifications for exemption. So you must be an existing public water system, must be in compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, or making progress towards compliance. So this does not include a public water system with MCL violations, missed monitoring, or open cases. So the water line must not be a forced subdivision, and projects cannot be split to meet the exemption requirements. So meeting these qualifications does not always guarantee exemption from plan review, but these are the basic requirements that allow for the opportunity to be exempt from the ATC/AOC process. So before moving on, the exemption process can be viewed in two parts. So basically, the first one as a pre-exemption and second as post-exemption. So per the Arizona Corporation Commission, a pre-approval is required before going through exemption review. So this phase is what we call a pre-exemption, which is not required by rule, but can be utilized to determine if the project will meet requirements. As seen, limited information is needed for pre-exemption approval. So upon approval, a pre-exemption letter will be sent authorizing the public water system to move forth with the exemption process. So as we can see, all that is needed for a pre-exemption review is that project description, the location, the date of the project, and just provide an estimated cost of materials, the labor and equipment, and then send your exemption request over to our group email. So after construction, or as we call it, post-exemption, for this case, a project that is 12,500 or less will need to provide the following items. So again, that description, the location and date of the project, a statement from the professional engineer that the line was not for a subdivision, the fair market value that includes the material, labors, and equipment, the name of the design and review engineer, the construction completion date and total construction time. And then, so moving on, we'll go over what is needed for a post-exemption when the cost is between $12,500 and the $50,000 range. So basically the documents needed are relatively the same, but the main difference is that the construction plan is needed with the signature and seal by a registered professional engineer in Arizona. So after meeting the requirements for post-exemption, we will issue a post-exemption letter stating that the project has been exempt from plan review and met the requirements set forth by the Arizona Administrative Code. So we took a slight detour from the ATC and AOC process, but we are back on track now, and we'll go over the approval of construction phase, which is done after the ATC permit has been issued and the project has been constructed. So this is the second and final phase of the ATC and AOC process. So per the Arizona Administrative Code R18-5-507, an approval of construction must meet the requirements of a completed certificate of completion, or known as AOC application, signed and sealed by a PE registered in Arizona. So the record drawings conform to the approved plans and specifications from the ATC phase. So what was approved on the ATC permit, it should be recorded in the AOC phase. And also we look for the operations and maintenance manual that has been approved, but that's based on the project type, more specific to treatment, and then have a certified operator. So furthermore, the record drawings or as-built should accurately record or mark each deviation from the original construction plans that were submitted in the ATC, and basically reflecting the project as actually built. So the PE signature and seal should be on each sheet of the record drawings or as-built, and quality control testing results and calculations should be submitted along with the AOC application. A common deficiency for the record drawings is that there is not a PE seal and signature affixed to each sheet. The markups are usually reflected on the original construction plan, so after construction, the PE should seal and sign each sheet of the record drawings to ensure the project was constructed according to the approved plans. So in general, most of the water components will need the following documents. So first and foremost, the AOC application completely filled out, the record drawings, the pressure and leakage testing results, the disinfection testing results, the BACT, and the operations and maintenance manual, but that is more specific to treatment projects. And so the AOC application, along with the record drawings, will need to be sealed and signed by the same registered PE in Arizona. There is a section in the AOC application for the pressure, disinfection, and BACT test that can be filled out. We also accept those testing results to be attached to the application as long as it is accurate and signed by the responsible person. And then, as I said, the operation and maintenance manual will need to be updated based on the treatment type and operations plans. So here's an example of a waterline AOC example. So we have the project name, project description. So for this AOC application, they're extending the water and sewer main to provide service to 3 lots. We look for the ADEQ file number on the AOC application to verify that the ATC permit was issued and that it is approved accordingly to the plans that were issued during that ATC phase. Also, please include the LTF number, which the ADEQ file number and LTF number is provided on that ATC permit. And then again, we look for the applicant's information to be included, the engineer's information, and the certified operator for this project or water system. So this page shows the appropriate testing that needs to be completed during the AOC phase. So the first section is the BACT results. So we look for the date that it was completed, include the equipment ID, from which stations that the BACT test was completed, the result, absent, and it's a pass or fail basis. So this, for instance, for this one, it passed. We look for the pressure test data. So we look for the date tested, the time it started. It's a 2-hour time frame. The diameter of the pipe for this project should be 8 inches. So we look for that in the ATC application and permit. The footage tested, we make sure that it matches with the approved waterline footage for that project. The allowable leakage as seen here, and so the leakage observed was 0. The pressure at the tested points were 200 psi, and this was pass. And then again, the signature of the employee observing the test provided here. And then also the chlorination test. So we look for the initial sampling, the date, the time, and the parts per millions of chlorine. And then after 24 hours detention time, we look for the date, make sure that it's 24 hours and the results. And then after sufficient flushing, again, we're checking for the dates, we're checking to make sure everything is done accordingly. And then the bacteriological sampling as well. So again, you can attach these results. As you can see here, it was attached here so we can verify everything was approved accordingly and everything was recorded correctly as well. So after reviewing these sections, the following pages where the PE registered in Arizona will sign the AOC application and attach the seal to this document. So after review of that AOC application and related documents, the review engineer of ADEQ will issue an AOC permit that certifies the approved water component to be activated and put into use. So depending on the type of component, ADEQ will issue a monitoring plan and make the appropriate updates of the water component installed. So now let's briefly go over the topics that we discussed today. So we went over the ATC phase and learned the requirements that are needed to obtain a permit before construction. We went over the different water components that need an ATC permit and the associated items for approval. And then we took a slight detour into the exemption process and learned about the rules and qualifications to be exempt from plan review. And then we learned about the AOC phase, which certifies the completion of the project that is ready for operation. And after proper testing and review of the record drawings or as-built, the AOC permit is issued as a final step in the ATC and AOC process for drinking water facilities. And so here are some helpful resources where you can find the ATC and AOC application at the Engineering Review Unit webpage, as well as other useful information, such as examples for water lines, storage tanks, and wells, and booster pumps as well. And then please remember that we are working remotely, and electronic submittals are a priority. So you can submit all ATC and AOC applications at our group email listed there. And then also, if you have any general questions, please do not hesitate to send us an email. We monitor this email daily and are willing to answer your questions related to ATCs and AOCs or any other questions you may have. And then one last thing, when you submit an ATC application, we will send an invoice for the review fee. The invoice can be paid electronically at the link provided here. And then once that invoice is paid, that is when the application is logged in and we will start the review process. And with that, this concludes today's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. It looks like we do have one question in the chat, unless Jason's working on it. This is from Steve. If you're replacing existing components due to the age, or the component is no longer working and you are replacing it with the same type of equipment or part, is the ATC AOC required, or would this be exempt?
So for that type of situation, just based on the age of the project and if there has been recent development around that area, we will most likely look for a new ATC and AOC to be completed just to verify any changes for that system. And there are cases, if it's a recent project and it's replacing exactly like for like, we would still require that ATC and AOC application to be completed, and just to verify that everything is designed appropriately and nothing has changed.
All right, thank you very much. If anyone has any further questions for Sergio, please refer to your handout for email, or you can also email the OpCert program and we'll forward any questions over to him. We have about 7 minutes left, and we're going to wrap that up with a quick mini presentation for applying for examination. A second here. Since this was a question earlier. Put that there. Thank you. Okay, if everyone can see my screen successfully. We had a question about applying for examination earlier. Just so you know, there are 2 ADEQ approved contractors. That would be Gateway Community College and City of Phoenix. Here is their contact information, email and phone. I can definitely say for Gateway Community College, email would be the fastest way to contact someone in case you need to update your exam information or date. Both locations have their own test dates, times, locations, and prices, so check each site and see which one works for you. Once you schedule an exam, any further issues or questions that come up regarding cancellation, rescheduling, an issue with payment, all of that needs to be taken up with the proctor of your choice, which was either Gateway or City of Phoenix. ADEQ does not dictate when the exams can be hosted or what time. We have a contract with these 2 proctors to make sure that they schedule the times pretty much. So like I said, if there's any issues, please contact your proctor. Please ensure you know the rules per location. They are both different. For example, City of Phoenix, if you're a no-show, you won't be able to schedule future exams. Read the contact information below, with the contact information below. You would need to, contact information above. Once again, for City of Phoenix, you would need to request cancellation 6 days prior to the exam, and I believe Gateway is a little bit different. So Make sure you know what's required of you for each location. Oh, and apparently my email is off. Don't worry about this email, but if you go to their site directly, these two blue squares might look familiar to many of you. On our operator certification homepage, onto the right sidebar, this is pretty much where you would click to register for the exams. Definitely call the number, and then we'll update that email contact information, but the number is still correct from my knowledge. Okay. Both of our proctors, Gateway and City of Phoenix, administer the 2017 ABC exam. It is a computerized exam and your results are instant. You get an individual mastery report by email. If you ever lose your copy or you forget what email you sent it to, you can just go ahead and email or call us at the OpCert program and we can forward a copy to you. You will need this entire, not entire report, but you will need the information above, like the student ID, the date and time, and then your score to certify your exams certify your exams on the portal. If you fail, luckily the mastery report has the three color categories here, yellow, red, yellow, and green. You'll know what areas you need to work on, what areas you need to study for the following exam or the next time you are scheduled for examination. Do we have any further questions on examinations? All right. Well, if that is the case, thank you so much for attending. Please stay tuned for our next events. We have a notification option on our website. You can sign up for email notifications whenever we put out any sort of outreach events or workshops or co-sponsor other training events. Please be sure to download the agenda. It is in the handout section of your GoToWebinar. Any further questions you have for any of the presenters today, you can contact them directly. If you have any further questions just for the certification in general OpCert program, you can email me at azopcert@azdeq.gov, and the phone number for the program is there again. Very simple, 0100. All of our phone numbers start with 771, so you just have to remember the 0100. All right, and with that, thank you very much for the attendance, and we'll see you at our next event.